Why are you smiling like that, man, John? Oh, we got to start this
He's
all
just
over
having
now.
fun.
Comes in with his big goofy smile. Supposed to be talking about the Christian Avengers, and you got to ham it up. It's all already ruined. All right, so
I'm
we're here.
just so happy to be here.
I'm sorry to hear that. You need a better life if that's.
I
What you're
really do. You're not wrong.
Okay.
John, you always complain about talking to me.
Who, me or him?
John does.
Well, I get it. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I have assembled the Christian Avengers. Here they are, all three of us, to talk about the Christian Avengers, which honestly, when you hear it, a little cringe, just a little, for sure. I'm surprised they weren't in costumes on this episode of the Christian Avengers. Like, I just expected to open up and see Cliff Nechtel sitting there in a Wolverine costume, and
that would have been
hilarious.
Cool. I low key wanted to dress up for this, but I just don't have anything that would have.
You know, Than, if you want clicks, you should be dressing up as Wolverine
or dressing down as the thumbnail.
Okay.
I did choose to wear my Dragon Ball Z shirt today because the last stream we had, you made fun of me for liking anime, though.
Listen, I'm not upset about you liking anime. I'm just annoyed that after Dragon Ball Z, the Frieza saga, it went downhill, and the Android saga was just not nearly as good, and the Majin Buu saga just was bad. I just didn't enjoy it. So, it is what it is.
Fair.
But anyway, back to the topic. So George Janko has decided he's going to assemble the Christian Avengers. Not a lot of avenging, though, I have to say. So I was like, oh, this should be interesting. Popular Christian YouTubers getting together. Let's see what they got. And yeah, little underwhelmed. I would think here's my thing, and I'll let you guys jump in after I'm done rambling here. If you're going to assemble what you think are the Christian Avengers, I feel like you should be taking on some Avenger level threats, not my baptism, my intercessory of the saints topic. How do I know if sin is going to affect the way I'm worshiping? I'm like, okay. It's like, can we do things like the problem of evil, the problem of divine hiddenness? Can we discuss evidence for God's existence? How do we deal with the Crusades? Nope. Is intercessory of the saints blasphemy? It's like, okay, I literally can't even, but maybe I'm being dramatic. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Well, you go first, John, and then you jump in.
Yeah, well, I didn't watch all of it, but I got, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 minutes in or something like that. And all I'm getting is it's a Bible study. That's what's happening. It's a Bible study. So I think it's just if they would have labeled this, Christian preachers get together, talk Bible, I'd be like, cool. But the Avengers thing is well, there's no avenging going on here. You guys are getting together and just having a Bible study, and it's great. Some of the greatest preachers are in that room.
Yeah, they're good preachers for sure. I mean, I would say the one who's probably did the best would be Rousan. He's the one who, if all of them put together, I'd pick him to go up in a debate against an atheist. Because I mean, he stood his ground against Dan McClellan. He stood his ground against Alex O'Connor. He's done. Yep. He can handle his own pretty well. But the other ones, I was just sort of like, I mean, these are great preachers, but they're not like Avengers. But what are your thoughts, Stan?
Yeah, I mean, so I tried to listen to it. I don't think it was bad. It was just when I hear Christian Avengers, I was thinking oh, we're gonna tackle some objections to the Christian faith because otherwise, what are we avenging? So I didn't think it was bad. I was just kind of perturbed that we weren't really getting too deep on some things, and then I only watched about 15 minutes of it. To be fair, so a lot of this will be going in blind for me.
Yeah. Well, what were you bored with it or something, Than? You didn't want to watch it all? This was the Christian Avengers.
I think it's just bored. a name mismatch. Yeah.
And I'm not saying these guys are dumb. They're not dumb. Okay. I'm not saying these guys are not bad Christians. They're not. Some of this stuff I was like, I don't know about that. But I mean, if come up with some more fun and controversial topics. Towards the end, they did when they started talking about hell. But that was a big thing. It's going to be so controversial. And it was oh, yeah. This is a day-to-day basis for us three. I mean, this is what we do.
So I talked about hell 16 times last night.
Yeah, it's They're the Christian Avengers. We're the Christian Street Fighters or something.
I agree with what you said, John, by the way. The whole, it felt like a Bible study.
Mhm.
Like I felt like I was in an evangelical, like low church Protestant Bible
Mhm.
study where it was more of like a let's talk about what the pastor talked about and talk about our feelings session rather than like something super rigorous, which again isn't a bad thing, but that's how
Yeah.
I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
nothing wrong with it. Like I was listening to some of it and I was like, man, yeah, I could feel that. I feel that. Sure. Yeah. But I'm not really getting any questions answered. It's like,
Mm.
yeah, sometimes in my life I sin every day too. So I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, George, if you end up watching this, just if you're gonna get the Christian Avengers together in the future, maybe do some avenging with them. Like, I don't know, like throw the problem of evil and suffering at them.
Well, has George ever had like a proper apologist on his channel? Like ever?
Rousan. I'd say
Rousan.
Rousan does. I don't know if he identifies as an apologist, but he's got some fight to him. He's got a little kick
Yeah.
in his spice. I mean,
Yeah.
like
I've never even watched Rousan before, but I've watched some stuff of Rousan's in the last few weeks. And I was actually pretty impressed. Like
Yeah,
he
he's good.
stood his ground with Alex.
Oh yeah, his toe to toe with Alex was great, and he
mean-
didn't back down from anything.
What is it? Cliff and the Nectals were on there, and like they're good in college campuses, but I mean, when you get them in debates, I was thoroughly underwhelmed with their recent debate with Phil and Alex, and I was like, oh come on, like get some arguments together. But yeah, that's another topic. So like they're great evangelists. I'm not so sure if they're like debater. Like again, if I was going to pick anyone in that room to go up against an atheist, it'd be Rousan, hands down for sure.
Yeah.
So we're going to play some clips and go over some stuff because I have some issues. I'm going to end up defending the Catholics a lot because that's another thing. If you're going to get the Christian Avengers together, why are we not bringing in the Catholics like Trent Horn, for example? You know, like Catholic is like the largest Christian church. I feel like they should be involved a little. Like,
because Catholics aren't really Christians. IP. Can I call you IP anymore? Or is it because now it's the two of you? I have to use your actual names.
You can call me IP and he is IPP. Okay? That's how we've already talked about this and we've decided.
You can call me BIP.
What is BIP?
Buff IP. That's what he's saying. All right. So let's get to some super chats here really quickly. Why could an unconscious necessary being eternally automatically create the universe with a beginning if its nature is to do so? So this is generally what you're going to get from like Graham Oppie. He wouldn't call it a being, but it's like an unconscious thing. Richard Swinburne has responded to this a lot in his books, like The Existence of God, for example, that series, as well as, I mean, just generally in a nutshell, it's like you have to deal with issues like of necessity. So why is this unconscious necessary being acting this way? How does it set itself into motion to do certain things? And then is it like acting as like a necessary process? Does that mean the universe is necessary? Because that has a lot of philosophical implications that most philosophers are just not willing to accept, that the universe is necessary. So it opens up a can of worms in that. I'd say Richard Swinburne has shown that a necessary mind is going to be far simpler. So Than probably knows a lot more than I do on this.
So I would agree with everything you just said there, Mike. You could take two approaches to this. One is grant the possibility of there being an unconscious, like not mind-like necessary being. And from there, you could just point to the fact that it's going to have arbitrary limits and it's not going to have as much explanatory power unless you bake in all this complexity into it. And you can go that route. The other route is that I actually think that whatever, assuming that you agree with the stage one contingency argument, I'm going to argue that whatever the necessary thing is going to be unlimited in any quantifiable property it has. And because it's going to explain all of contingent reality, it would have power in some degree. But because it's the necessary being and like the foundation of all reality, it's not going to have any arbitrary limits in power. Cognition and the ability to think would be a type of power. And so by necessity, then this thing is going to be mind-like and making this hypothesis not possible. That's the brief overview of one of the roads you could take for that, though.
Yeah. So why should a person who, after a decent amount of research, remains 99% convinced there is no God or free will, actively put his trust in Jesus anyway? Well, it'd be very hard for them to do that for sure. You might be able to argue from the collapse of society right now and the increasing levels of secularism that this just isn't good for society. And all research is pointing to the idea that Christianity is positively associated with all sorts of benefits for people and society. I just interviewed an atheist who's a homosexual on my channel yesterday. He was agreeing with me. He's like, yes, we need more Christianity to preserve democracy and all this stuff. So I would say maybe take that route. I mean, but if they've reached that kind of idea, they're just probably not going to be interested. And all you can do is pray for them at that point.
What's that wager too? The something wager.
Pascal's
wager.
Pascal's wager. So like Pascal's wager too, I think is a good one. And people have like a misconception of Pascal's wager. It's not do it because you might go to hell. It's more along the lines of like try it out, participate in church, participate in worship, participate in all these things, and just watch what happens, watch what comes to fruition to your life. Worst case scenario, you waste a bit of your time. Best case scenario is you actually like get a revelation, you get like a connection with God, and you come to the understanding of what Christianity is.
Yeah. Thank you for the super sticker. Also, some people put in some super chats super early, and just to warn you when yet happens, like if I announce the stream and I put in this, it's likely they're going to disappear. So I grabbed a quick screenshot. Milo says, was Moloch a deity or some type of sacrifice in the ancient Near East? I think based on 1 Kings 11, it was like a nickname for Milcom, the god of Ammon. But some passages might be just referring to a type of sacrifice, like in Exodus, for example. Thank you, Luke. Also, this super chat, I'm sorry, I kind of messed that one up, but he says, is there a way to reconcile the Leibnizian cosmological argument with the digital physics argument, both on your channel? It's hard for me to understand how any sources. I don't think you need to reconcile them. They're both contingency arguments. Like, there's nothing that needs to be reconciled there. The Leibnizian argument just says the universe is contingent, and the digital physics argument argues that in different ways.
Yeah, for the person that asked that, if you're worried about like the standard principle of sufficient reason in the Leibnizian contingency argument, there's tons of different principles of sufficient reason that you can poke at and point to. So if that's the thing you're worried about, I recommend just like looking into the literature on the PSR. You can email me if you want to, than@inspiringphilosophy.com. And I can kind of point you at some of those resources if you want as well.
Pretty gay of you. Matteo says, Teen Titans assemble. IP is Beast Boy because he's a beast. Well, thank you. It's probably because I'm so hairy compared to these two little
Teen
young
Titans.
boys over here. You guys are awesome is what he says. Yeah, that works. We can be that, guys. Sometimes we'll just fight a bunch of teenagers online while the Christian Avengers deal with Avenger level threats.
Can we be
like,
the Z
can you pray to
fighters?
saints?
It's pretty much what I do.
You do. That's what people ask me at church. Like, so what do you do? I'm like, I fight with teenagers online. Normal stuff.
Fair enough.
You do it more than I do, John. You're always fighting with them teens.
Yep. Yeah. They like to fight.
Sometimes when I'm up late at night, I watch John's streams and I get so triggered that I low key am wanting to go down to my office and jump on his streams with him.
Yeah.
I specifically plan that. I message people. I'm like, come in and complain about this thing in a really ridiculous way while Than watches. And then he'll come up and his super jackedness will bring in more viewers. And it's all part of the plan.
Yeah, we might get a special guest here soon, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know.
Ooh.
Okay, so just keep in mind. Thank you for the generous super chat. God bless. Keep up the work you do. It has helped me so much with your work. Hope this helps you in your continued work. Thank you so much for the very, very generous super chat. IP saying Dragon Ball Z fell off after the Frieza saga is straight blasphemy. Does the Cell saga not exist? Listen, I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it was not as good as the Frieza saga. And then the Majin Buu saga definitely declined even more. I'm just saying it peaked at Frieza.
Man, I'll just bite my tongue.
Listen, you can't beat me in a fight because I carry a rape whistle and I will blow it and it will cause your ears to hurt and then I'll be able to run and you won't get me. So
I think Cell Saga is better than Frieza.
Well, no one's perfect, John.
I'm just saying. And look, this is going to be contrary. I think Super is better than DBZ.
Tournament of Power arc, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm finally going to be able to become a YouTube member by the next month, Monday. Hopefully, I'll gain enough monthly funds to become a bigger donor. Well, thank you so much, Ransford. We really appreciate the support. Anybody who wants to donate, please do go to inspiringphilosophy.org/donate. We need more monthly donors. So please do that. I'll put the link in the video description below so you can click on that and then join us. So that'd be great. So I will get to some more super chats here in a little bit. Oh, wait, I'll do this one really quick. Just disappointed that they wanted to speak so much about Orthodox beliefs without us there to represent ourselves. Exactly, Alex. That was my problem. If you're going to get the Christian Avengers together, it's just a couple evangelicals talking about faith. And I'm like, that's not the Avengers. Like, you need some Christian diversity. Diversity is our strength, guys. You need at least Trent Horn there, I'd say, to represent the Catholics. Like Wesley Huff would be good as well.
Mhm.
I mean, like William Lane Craig. So many minds come into this, and like,
Yeah.
Well, didn't William Lane Craig go on that show before?
I don't think he did.
No.
No,
I figured at least he'd make it.
You want me to look it up quick?
you can look it up. I'm pretty sure he hasn't. I mean, he's sort of, winding down, sort of retiring, that kind of stuff. So, I don't think he's ever been on George Janko's show. He's been elsewhere though, so who knows? All right, let's get into some of these clips here. So, I'm going to present the the Christian Avengers for you, ladies and gentlemen, and get ready to be blown away by some of this stuff.
Because every day, like for example, when I was doing the episode of the Girls Gone Bible, I really don't think that sinning, like it was cussing, was like cursing. I thought it was like if you curse somebody. But then when I really dove into it, I was like, oh, I need to really watch my mouth and clean my mouth. I'm still actively trying to do that. But every day you're learning.
Now, that one of the things was sort of those ones I sort of just went, are they saying like cursing is like curse words is a sin?
Yeah.
Because it
that's-
isn't.
I
That's what they're
misunderstood
saying.
that then, because if you replay the clip, it sounded like he was equivocating like cursing somebody, like curse words with cursing somebody.
No. So I saw this one before, but those Girls Gone Bible, they like had an episode with him, and they like rebuked him about his foul language for some time, and then he promised that he would give up on the foul language, and so he's referencing back to that, and so he's straight up saying mother is a sin. That's what he's saying.
No, and here I'll just share a quick source here by someone who's an expert in biblical languages, Dr. Paul Maxwell. Biblical approach to swearing clean. Now, this is a really good article. Sorry, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but
No.
I'll
Let's
get
read
down-
it all from the top. Come on.
all from the top, boy. Basically, get down to his conclusion here. It says you can accomplish much evil with your language without swearing. You can accomplish much good with your language through the use of swear words. The Bible doesn't prohibit the use of swear words. Conceived in the fifth category, we circumscribe, which is basically like profanity or something like that, which is merely linguistic inflections. Okay. One of the things he notes is that when we substitute swear words, it doesn't change anything, because if you say, oh, frick, how is that different than dropping the F-bomb? And if you want to call somebody like an effing moron, you're still causing problems if you call them a frickin' moron. Like you're not making your language cleaner, because it's about how you use your language at this point. The Bible didn't know certain words as inherently evil. This is something that was sort of invented during the Victorian era, that certain words are just inherently bad.
Mm-hmm.
This is not really what's going on with these words. So yeah. I had to just play that because that's a little thing that always annoys me when it comes to swear words. People think they're just inherently bad, and that's what the Bible's talking about. There were no words in the ancient world that were just inherently bad to say. It was all about context and how you use them.
That one's a big one with Christians, because like I was a little bit more liberal with my swears on my lives for a while. The amount of messages I got from Christians being like, "You're not a Christian, you're not saved," and it's like, listen, I have called people some terrible things without swearing, and I didn't get as many messages as I did when I did it with like an F-bomb in it. And like for some reason, the F-bomb just brought it to the logical conclusion that I must be damned. And I'm not sure where that comes from.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it just comes from culture. It's a cultural thing. And
Yeah.
I'm sure I won't say them, especially on streams, because it's a cultural thing. People don't like it. I apply 1 Corinthians 8. But I mean, in terms of just metaphysics, they're not sins to just say words. Like,
Yeah. It's only going to be sinful in like you said, Mike, when the context that you're in. Like, I will swear when I'm with the homies goofing around, but I'm not going to say if swears in front of my mother-in-law who's sensitive to that kind of stuff, right? Like, knowing your audience and who you're talking to and what words are going to affect people certain ways, the whole entire point. But the inherent worth of the word itself is not going to be dictated by what the culture says. I don't think words have an inherent worth in of themselves. So,
And somebody in the chat said they think it falls under the perverse language. I think they have a point there. Like if I'm talking to someone and they perceive swear words as perverse, and I know that, and I start swearing, I think I'm acting in a way that's sinful. But like I said, if I'm chilling with Dan, neither one of us sees swear words as like perverse, and we drop a couple swear words like, "Hey, how the f you doing, bro? High five." I don't think there's any sin in that.
Yeah. So the thing was a biblical approach to swearing, in parentheses, clean is the article. And it was posted by Rob Wright, but it's by Dr. Paul Maxwell if people are interested in that. So you can check that out. Let's play another clip here from this. And like, this is kind of what I mean, I think, in terms of just like, well, this is not an Avengers levels threat, guys.
And after God's own heart. One of the legends of the Old Testament. Struggles with lust, sleeps with another woman, kills his best friend and her husband. So it's like, what the heck? And in Psalm 51, he says,
I love how it's so profound. He's like, and man, what the heck?
So they're talking about David killing when the Bathsheba affair, and like, okay, but first of all, Uriah and David weren't best friends, if I recall. Is that fair?
Where does that come from?
I don't know. I Googled. I was like, I just got to Google. So David and Uriah best friends, and like, even the AI was like, no.
Maybe he meant Jonathan.
He didn't kill Jonathan, though.
That's true.
So what? Like, I was confused. I didn't know what to think about something like that. Like, that's not like, and this is kind of what they're doing. They're just sort of talking about sin and the effects, and it's like, okay. It's been like 30 minutes, guys. Like, can we get to some more real topics? I had to admit, I started skipping around a little bit based on the time markers because I wanted some meat. Not like, as you were saying, like a Bible study on some sermon. So, oh my gosh, you guys will not believe it. I wish I had the intro music, but here we go. Oh, look who it is. Oh my God. He's so gorgeous.
Hey, boys.
Wait.
He is gorgeous. My
Bro,
God.
just makes you want to.
Why did you have me on the thumbnail if he was coming?
Listen. I didn't know if he was going to come for sure, but Than has to come. That's a rule. And you don't call us boys. We've already established in the chat. They established we're Teen Titans. So, you get it right.
Teen Titans. That sounds more gay.
Yo. You know what? I'll give you that, but only because you're an Avenger now. So.
Aha!
I gotta respect that. Okay.
Let me share this to my
I'll
community.
give you that
real quick. Make sure that they can all see it. Give me 1 sec.
Share it to your community. Do it. Do it. We need more in here.
If we're the Teen Titans while he's doing that, who are we? Are like, okay, so you're the Beast Boy or something like that, Mike?
That much thought into it? Oh, bro.
You're clearly Robin. You're the gayest.
I'll take it, man.
All right, I'm gonna send this to Zach. Did you swap out that link? Oh, you're doing it right now. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, sweet. So that's on Patreon. All right, guys. Thanks for having me, Mike. Michael Jones, Big John Steele.
What's up, bro?
That Christopol. How do you say your name, bro?
You're trying to say it in the Greek accent? It's if you want to say it in the Greek accent, it's Christopoulos.
Christopoulos. I like
that. Just sounded smug. It didn't sound Greek.
I mean,
you
Americans and your
Americans,
man.
Don't insult
you're Canadian.
Me like
That's
that. Don't
even
insult
worse.
me like that, bro. Don't insult me like that.
Rousan, what were you thinking when you were on the set with the Christian Avengers? Like my biggest complaint was I wanted to hear more from Rousan, and I wasn't getting enough Rousan, honestly. And I said earlier before you showed up, I felt like you were the guy that would be if I had to pick someone to go up against an atheist, it would have been you for sure, of that whole crowd. So like, what were you thinking when you were in there? Like, what are your thoughts on the whole experience?
Oof. What are my thoughts on the whole experience? My thoughts. Well, one, I was very grateful to George for putting it together. That was not easy to get everyone there at the same time. So Cliff and Stuart are moving around. Girls Gone Bible are like doing an actual tour in clubs, which is crazy. They're in clubs and theaters. Johnny Chang has a lot going on. Bryce has a lot going on. So first of all, I was just grateful that they were able to pull that off because that's a lot of work to get everyone's schedules coordinated like that. So I was pumped on that. What were my thoughts? My thoughts were, this is interesting. We don't all have the same theological backgrounds. We're all in different places within our faith, right? Like I would say George is newer to the faith. Girls Gone Bible is newer to the faith. And, Stuart, Cliff has been walking with Jesus longer than I've been alive. So there's a difference of, I would say, maturity and people in different seasons. And I wanted to be intentional with everything I said and not overtalk and not dominate the room and just kind of talk too much. So I just was trying to be intentional without, over talking it. So this is kind of, I guess, some of my initial impressions of that room. If you want me to be more specific, I could be more specific if you tell me like what specifically you're talking about.
We all kind of agreed before you got here. We felt like if you're gonna get the Christian Avengers together, we need some Avenger level threats.
Okay.
And like honestly, I'm like 30 minutes in, and I'm just like, this is just like Cliff Notes on a Bible study, which is great for some people, but I mean like when are we going to get to like the meat and the bones? And you guys did in like the last hour with the problem of hell, which I thought you had a great answer on. But like up until that point, I was just sort of like, okay, can we get to something like really like the controversial? Let's dig in.
Yeah.
We need some Avenger level threats. And like a lot of us were just sort of like, we need more. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, well, I think we have to factor in Georgia's audience. There's a lot of new Christians, a lot of non-Christians, a lot of Jesus curious people. And I think George is really trying to say, here are the felt needs of my audience, and can we speak into these things? And that's kind of what I think the point was. Here are the things that his audience is asking him. And, addiction is a real thing. Like people who are following Jesus but still can't stop smoking weed or can't stop looking at porn. That's a real thing for a lot of people. So I don't know if that was very surface level. I think that's a real problem a lot of people have. And so I like that. I'm trying to think of what the first hour was. Can you remind me some of the other topics in the first hour?
Yeah, I can. So like the first hour was basically like it was a long thing on like dealing with sin. How do we deal with sin? We're gonna get to one clip here in a minute, but it's one thing I think was theologically problematic was why God taught Adam there's power in the tongue.
So
some personal stories.
That was Johnny Chang, and that kind of threw me for a loop, if I'm going to be honest. But shout out to Johnny Chang. Johnny Chang, I'm friendly with Johnny Chang. But okay, so dealing with sin, like there's people in your chat right now that think that like, yeah, bro, like light up the blunt. Like what's the issue with smoking weed? I'm gonna eat, drink, and be merry. I think that's a real problem. And here's the issue. And the deeper issue, I'd love to actually hear your guys' thoughts on it. Do you guys think that the church, the broader church, provides tangible steps on people overcoming sin? Like, it's another thing to point out and make the argument why something is sinful, but is there actual resources being provided to help people get sober and stay sober? And I don't know. I don't know if there is. This is what I mean. I think there is, in the sense of remove sin, repent of sin, confess sin, replace sin. Yes, in a spiritual sense, right? Replace sin with virtue, replace sin with church, replace sin with scripture reading, with divine liturgy, with the practice of your faith. But replace sin in the sense of, what about in the natural? How do we develop natural habits to help tame our flesh away from the perpetual pleasure seeking that many people are dealing with? I don't know if there's enough of that conversation happening. And but I'd love to hear from you guys. Like, do you think that the broader community is doing a good job on helping people build virtue and escape vice?
I think it depends on the church. I could see evangelical churches suffering from that. But I think if you go to like a high church, you're going to have things like confession, liturgy, a lot of stuff like that is really going to help. So like, like Catholic, Lutheran, Anglican, Eastern Orthodox do have aspects of confession where you can meet with a priest or pastor or reverend like once a week and kind of go through that stuff. So I do think they are great. I think a lot of evangelical churches are sort of lax in that, unfortunately. Not all. I think some have some great steps, but I think just because they sort of water down like traditional church setup, the traditional rituals, they've taken away from something and they didn't realize what they've done in a lot of ways. But what are your thoughts, Than?
I have a lot to say on this, to be honest with you, because I do a lot of this kind of work behind closed doors, ministry wise, actually. I am currently like working with about 20 different guys between my age and slight like younger than I am,
Mhm.
My church has an on-site psychologist to help people work through the stuff and counseling and all this other stuff. And so, broadly speaking, I think I'd agree with Mike. I don't know that the church as a broad category has the resources and that this conversation's happening. These pastoral conversations are extremely important. So I think we do need to work on that stuff a little bit more, because it's really hard to take some of these psychological things and spiritual things and communicate them in a way that actually makes sense. Like, even in my own life, Rousan, I know you don't know me personally, but like, I wasn't always a Christian. So becoming a Christian, there was a lot of stuff I had to unlearn, and I'm still unlearning to this day. And cultivating that virtue and eliminating that vice is a long process. And it's like, how do I get people to understand how God has helped me do that stuff in a way that equips those people? Man, I wish I had all the answers to that, but I don't.
Do you mind sharing what like kind of stream of Christianity you swim in? I know Michael Jones keeps that private, but then is that okay? Are you willing to share that, or is it? Do you keep that private as well?
I'll share that with you privately if you want. I keep that publicly.
That's an inspiring philosophy policy we do here.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Big John Steele, what do you think? Like, is the church doing enough to provide people pathways away from vice to virtue?
I think it's going to depend on the community, depend on the church, depend where you at. Like, because you were talking IP about like high churches. Now I've been to some like high churches around in my community, and I actually think they lack in this area. And that's not critiquing high churches in general, because I think they do have those things. So I think a big part is going to be like your community and where you're in. But what I think is a problem in Christian culture is I think a lot of Christians have forgotten about like common grace. And they kind of lean a little too much. And listen, I'm not trying to say don't lean into prayer, but they lean to like prayer is the only solution, just prayer and lean into God. And of course you start there. But I think there's the aspect that sometimes, go to therapy, sometimes go to a doctor, sometimes seek discipleship, sometimes put yourself under an authority and have some accountability in life. And I think that's like the biggest problem I see in like cultural Christianity. It's like, I don't need any of that because I have only the Lord. Well, the Lord provided that for us, so we should use it and we should lean into it a little bit more. Now, that's my opinion on it.
Now, Rousan, I got a question for you. This is something I was also pondering. If you're going to get the Christian Avengers together, why are we only basically getting like evangelicals, Protestants for the most part? I mean, like the largest church is still the Catholic Church. I feel like you guys went into a lot of like topics that Catholics have a lot to say on. Like, so why not bring like an Orthodox Christian influencer on, like a Catholic influencer on? Like, I feel like if you're going to get like the group that's going to represent Christianity best, like, why are we only getting like from this one subset of this one group? I feel like that really needs to be broadened and like represent like other areas of Christianity that we don't get to hear from that much often in America.
I totally agree with you. And I think that is what I'm attempting to do at my own event, which you're going to be at, Mike Jones. Woo! Right? Is that we got Lila Rose coming, we got another Catholic coming, that I'll tell you who it is offline. I was trying to get my Eastern Orthodox folks there, but they didn't want to stand next to Gavin Ortlund, who they think is a flat out heretic. That's not hyperbole. so I am trying to do that in my real life with my real event.
Here it is. If you guys blessedgodsummit.com, there it is. So we'll be
So yes, I'm with you. And I love that. Like, I love those sorts of conversations. So like Lila Rose is a Catholic. There's folks from all sorts of different streams of Christianity here. I wanted to have an Eastern Orthodox presence as well. And I would say in the context of a live event, that's actually harder to pull off. That wasn't using that as a segue into my promotional bit, but so Gavin Ortlund's going to be here. So there is a pretty wide spectrum. Now, in terms of this, why I think it wasn't more ecumenical in this conversation, I think two things. One, I think people are assuming that this is it meant to be a declaration of this is the Christian Avengers on the internet. George was just having fun with the title, and George was speaking to the people he felt like were Christian Avengers to him, like in his circle. So everyone there played a specific role in George's life. Girls Gone Bible confronted him on his use of profanity, his flippant use of profanity and public use of profanity, which to his credit, he conceded and has done a good job on cleaning up his mouth publicly and privately. I told him, hey man, like, when are you guys going to get married? And that, I would say, I think he would feel comfortable with me saying that moved the timeline of his wedding up so that he wasn't just living together with his wife now and being sexually immoral. Cliff married him.
Good.
I think I think he has a lot of time offline with Johnny Chang. So I think for George, everyone there, Bryce is a good friend of his. They're in proximity. Everyone there was like his Christian Avengers. I don't think it was supposed to be this like unanimous, these are the people who are
That makes more sense.
making up the Christian Avengers on the internet. This
No,
is the
I mean,
people he has access to, and these are the people that he has relationship with, and these are people that he views as fairly high profile public Christians, all in different pockets. But yes, I would have loved to see more streams of Christianity represented and a good faith dialogue about that. And as those of you guys that saw, I did gently push back on some of the comments about communion, on some of the comments about icons, on some of the comments about high church in general that I thought were a bit unfair in the moment. And so I was trying to walk him off the ledge because I knew where this was going to spin out of control into.
You did a great job. You
tried.
definitely, I gave you an A plus in the conversation for sure.
Thank you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you did a great job. But yeah, that makes sense in terms of what he's doing there. So yeah, I get that. So yeah, I appreciate you clearing that up. I think it's just a lot of people looking on the outside. First of all, I'm glad it happened. I think it just moves the conversation further, and a lot of people see more Christianity in the public sphere. We need to see more of that. I think a lot of people are just sort of kind of going like, in our circles, are asking us like things like, why are no apologists on there? Or other than like Stuart and Cliff, like, why are they not dealing with like the really hard topics? Like, and one thing I also say to people is I think a lot of people in the influencer sphere, like, really try to look at like the common guy as if like, well, I can't talk about these complex topics to them. I was just at a church in Long Island this Saturday speaking on the problem of evil and gospel reliability. And I did not sugarcoat this stuff. They were receptive. They were taking photos. They were asking complicated questions. I think the average Christian can handle some rough water, some deep topics. I mean, I'm going into things like Luke Vandewey's study on onomastic congruence, and they're tracking. They're tracking. So I think we need to remember the layman actually is much smarter than I think a lot of people will give them credit.
Yeah.
I don't think they can just tolerate it. I think they're hungry for it too, because so when I'm live, I get a lot of Christians come in and they come in and they ask these hard questions to the point where I'm like, oh God, not this question again. But it's like, it is the question of like the problem of evil, the problem of hell, the problem of divine hiddenness. Those are the questions they're coming up and asking. They're like, how do I deal with this? And some of them are like, I'm in the middle of deconstructing. How do we figure it out? So I don't think it's just that they tolerate. I think they're hungry for it and they're actively looking for it.
Yeah. To really hit on that again, I've taught a 16-year-old class, like systematic theology, where you're teaching pretty much like philosophy 101 on top of that to 16-year-olds. So I think the average person is capable of doing things. It's not as sexy, like it's not going to get as many views. And that could be a big angle for this as well. But I think that we shouldn't underestimate the average person when it comes to these things.
Yeah,
See,
like,
don't
I'm
sell
going to
yourself
pull
short.
up the
and says no.
You're sexy.
the timestamps because I do want to look at everything we covered. I don't.
Would you say,
remember.
Mike?
I just think don't sell yourself short. You're sexy. Don't worry.
I was just going to say, Than, just do it shirtless and
No.
you'll be fine.
Exactly. In front of 16-year-olds. No, don't do that, Than.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. So here's a clip I wanted to get Rousan to comment on, because again, this all sort of threw us for a loop when we heard this one coming out. However, Johnny Chang does have the most Avengers sounding name I've ever heard. He sounds like he should be in.
He's also
sounds like
incredibly handsome.
Isn't that the name in Mortal Kombat? Johnny Chang. I feel like that should be.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So let's play this clip here.
Matthew 12:37 tells us, by the fruit of your lips, you shall be justified. By the fruit of your lips, you shall be condemned. The reason why Adam, God had Adam name the animals was not because God was tired. He could have named the animals himself. What he was teaching Adam was that there's power in your tongue, right? So if you're sitting there and you're saying, it's a rhinoceros, it's a hippo, whatever, so shall it be, is what, God was teaching Adam. But it's in the same stroke. If I say that I'm a sinner and nothing's going to work out, I'm depressed, I'm lonely, I have anxiety, what I'm doing is I'm giving that power, right? And it's leading me and dragging me according to what I say. But if I sit there and I say, although I sinned, God has washed my sin, I can continuously move forward boldly and meet him at the throne of grace, at the throne of mercy, then it gives us this type of confidence to move forward with.
So let's stop there. So I will say, I think at the end, he sort of like recovered a little bit because he didn't take that power thing too far. Just saying like, you know, think positive, speak positive. Yeah, totally agree. But like to call that a power, it's really getting too close to like word of faith movement, prosperity gospel. And to think that like that had anything to do with naming of the animals, I think we've gone too far. That I don't see any evidence in Genesis. That's why Adam was naming the animals so that he could learn there's power in his tongue.
What verse was he referencing? What was it again?
He was
Genesis,
yeah,
where
Genesis.
God.
No. He said it wasn't like Matthew. At the start.
Matthew something. Yeah. I forget.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Here's the thing about Johnny Chang is that he will see these really kind of interesting connections within the scriptures, right? But then he'll say these interesting connections with like a certainty, like the reason God gave, right? So there's a lot of stuff in there that's good. So the first part is, yeah, God didn't need Adam to name the animals. God
real quick, it was Matthew 12:37, John, just so you know.
Thank you.
What is that verse? Matthew 12:37?
Yeah, Matthew 12:37, yeah.
I just want to see what we're referencing. 12:37.
Yeah, just to add what you were saying. Yeah, that's but I mean like you can
so
see those
for by your words
connections,
you will be acquitted. Yeah, and by your words you will be condemned. And we see James talks about like the tongue. So what I think is, I think he's saying, so the truth part is, yes, God didn't need Adam to name the animals. The second part is you have the reality that a lot of people walk around with this guilt and condemnation over them. And that is potentially what keeps them stuck when we're looking at ourselves in the New Testament and what the scriptures declare Christians to be, even in the church of Corinth, where they're sexually immoral. God, Paul keeps having to tell them to stop being sexually immoral. He still calls them saints, right? At one point, he's telling them they're worldly, and then he's calling them saints. So I think what Johnny Chang is trying to say, if you walk around with this idea of I'm a sinner, I'm a terrible sinner, oh, woe is me. Like if your soundtrack for your life is Paul Washer, you're probably going to stay stuck as a sinner, right? You're probably going to stay stuck in that paradigm. So that is also true. Now, the thing the thing that I kind of winced was when he said, and the reason.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I would just say, man, I think that could have landed better had he just said, well, is it possible? Is it possible that the reason God gave him is that he wanted him to understand it? And then it kind of becomes more of this, check this out. I got this little nugget. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. And I think that it's the certainty that he made the statement with that I think kind of has created some pushback. And I understand Johnny Chang is super smart and he does get these really interesting little insights, and some of them are just connections he's making, and some of them you could find in other theological literature. Like I think the idea of no longer walking around and proclaiming the banner of sinner over your life, I think there's utility in that. Not in the sense that like my words have magical powers that if I speak the right things, it'll create a abracadabra and no longer will. I don't think he's saying that. I'm saying from the paradigm that I'm a new creature, I'm a new creation in Christ, that when God sees me, he sees the righteousness of Christ, and I walk in that identity and I walk in my newness. I think there's truth in that. I think a lot more Christians actually need that. Now, again, it's the certainty. It's the reason why. It's like, well, I don't know if it's the reason, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons.
Well, I don't know if you've heard of the distinction between like theology proper and pastoral theology, but it like what he's doing to me just seems like an instance of pastoral theology. And like you said, Rousan, if he would have just changed his wording up a little bit, I think that would have made this a little easier to listen to. Because he's also picking up on something real, but I think he's just misapplying the thing we're actually observing to not the right place in the text, and taking that Matthew passage also a little out of context to make that point.
Yeah, again, like I'm reading this right now. Sorry to cut you off, then, but I think like in the context of what's happening in Matthew 12 here is like a rebuke of the Pharisees being hypocritical, as in they behave in a certain way and they speak in another way. So I don't think it has like I don't think it has a connection that he was trying to imply. Not that he is wrong, but I just don't think this is the verse for it.
Yeah.
What about the
And
verse in the James verse about like the power of the tongue and the rudder, and you curse, bless God and you curse people with the same tongue. People saying eisegesis. I can see a little eisegesis there. I'm not mad to concede that.
I would say what Matt says here in the chat is really important. There's truth in what he was saying, but the reason God had Adam name the animals wasn't to teach Adam to speak magic powers.
Yeah.
That was the problem I saw. It's like, listen, you can make that. Leave Genesis 2 out of it, sir. Johnny Chang, sir. I mean, man.
I like Johnny Chang on a personal level, but he does have these moments where it's like it's these little secrets he kind of has. That he's kind of getting these little secret downloads, and they're really interesting. And some of them hit. I'm not gonna lie. Some of them slap, and then some of them fall flat. Like I think that one, in my opinion, fell a little flat.
Yeah, we need to get him to. I think the next time he needs to be introduced, with the Mortal Kombat music, just so we know. Because I looked it up. It's actually a Mortal Kombat character, Johnny Cage. It's close enough.
That is good. Okay. Let me ask you guys: why do you guys think God had Adam name the animals?
I think it's him participating in creation in terms of like bringing more order to creation. This is what Genesis 1 lays out. God brings order, calls humans to subdue the earth, to have dominion over the animals. Here's an aspect of giving order, because when you in the ancient world, when you gave someone a name, it was sort of like this aspect of giving order, but also saying that you sort of have a sort of like a hierarchy over it. Like, so adults name their kids and saying like, this is my child. Adam gets to name the animals in the sense like this is creation that now belongs to me as the new king of creation underneath the true king who is God.
Yeah. I think it's connected to the image of God. I think the image of God is a function. And so we, like humans, to be in the image of God is to have dominion over the earth and be co-heirs of the Edenic vision with God and to partner with God. And so I think this was just an instance of exacting the image of God as commanded by God.
Yeah, like the first commandment is like to till the garden, right? Like, what's that saying that C.S. Lewis, love and labor are the two things that we're like created to do. And I think Than holds to. I'm not sure about Michael, but like that divine counsel theology, right? This is all part of participating in God's creation, participating in His ruling, as in not as in like we're His level by any means, but just being able to walk with Him on this path.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I think that's good. Look at some super chats, and I have a very important clip we're going to play on baptism. I want to get Rousan's opinion on that. What are the biggest arguments against atheism? I apologize for questions on you already answered, but I'm struggling with faith. Why would God even create us? Thanks again. So best argument against atheism, I think, is going to be contingency arguments, like things like emergent universe argument or digital physics argument, Leibnizian cosmological argument. They have a hard time grounding reality in something that's not a sentient being, especially if you bring in idealism, because then mind is fundamental. It's very hard to escape from that. So if you make a good case that the universe is fundamentally idealistic in the sense that it is information contingent on mind, you have a very strong case that the foundation of reality is mind itself, which is what we would call God. I don't know if you guys have any opinions.
You're saying that how can something without a mind create something with a mind? Is that, I'm just trying to.
That's another argument I would use, but that's similar to it. Yeah.
That's good. I agree. That's a great argument.
I've been kind of a sophist with people with that lately. I've been like pushing it back on them, being like, well, can anybody actually give me a case for atheism? It seems to be like that's the default. And like we should just default to atheism if Christianity isn't true. Well, I don't think that's the case. Like, because you can let's say you deconstruct Christianity and you prove like the classical idea of Christianity isn't true. Well, then you can just go to open theism. Well, if you debunk open theism, well, we can go to pantheism, and we have all these different ideas of what God can be. So I'm very curious. This is like my challenge I've been putting out lately is like, is there an atheist out there that can actually give me an argument for naturalism, an argument for atheism? I haven't seen too many. Maybe I'm just not educated enough.
Yeah.
But
no, you're right.
The path I've been going.
That's what I was just going to hit on really quick. Was I don't really think there is a case for atheism, because atheism is just this idea that there are no gods or big G God. But that doesn't tell you anything about what you would expect reality to look like, independent of that one proposition. So there's no expectations. So therefore, no explanatory power, unless they come up with a really, 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 really complex theory to try to explain everything, at which point that in of itself is an argument against atheism. So
Mhm.
That's good.
Dyer and Shamoon are like Batman and Superman. Shamoon has a brute force and Dyer is the Brainiac. I'd say they're more like the Punisher. They just cause endless carnage wherever they go, and just everyone's dead, and even the good guys. It's just, okay, guys, calm down. I don't know if they'd even disagree with that. That might be a compliment. I don't know. But yeah. How do you know the Bible's infallible, not just highly historically accurate? I don't think Than and I say the Bible is infallible. Do you, Than?
it depends on what you're really meaning by these words.
Yeah.
Like, if by this word you mean like Chicago statement inerrancy, I don't think I'm affirming that.
Mhm.
If by infallible you mean like does not fail for the purposes
Mm-hmm.
that it was created for, I would affirm that.
Hmm.
But it depends what you're
Mhm.
what you're asking.
Yeah. John, you're freaking me out. Stop it already. Stop it, John.
I don't even know
John,
what I
stop
was
it.
doing.
John,
Dude,
stop
stop, dude. We just said stop it, and you're doing it again.
Ugh.
I'm a rebel. I'm just gonna keep going, bro.
Any book on Daniel 7, the Son of Man interpretation? Yeah, try Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They have a great interpretation of that. You should.
Come on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can't think of any books off the top of my head. Check out some commentaries on Daniel. But honestly,
Brant Petrie talks about it
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
yeah, check out some Brant Petrie books. I affirm all the core doctrines of Christianity, including the Trinity, but I'm a Baptist Protestant. Am I outside the faith? No. No, you're not. Nope. Look, even if you like, here's an argument. Like, some Catholics might say you are, but just say the Catholic Church's official stance is they do not rebaptize Protestants when they become Catholic. Why is that? Because they affirm baptism. However, what does the Catholics also say? What does the Bible say? Baptism saves. So, okay, you're saved by that standard. They affirm your baptism. The Bible says baptism saves. You're good. So, and you affirm the core doctrines, you're fine. The Catholic Church does not affirm LDS baptisms, though, because they reject core doctrines. So that's an important distinction.
Nor should anyone.
Exactly. However, I have extended LDS family members, and they have been baptized for me and my family on our behalf. So if they turn out to be right, I'm good. So yeah. I was pretty sad to see their theology go off the deep end and straw man and bastardize other faiths. May the Lord grant them forgiveness. Also, may the Holy Trinity bless all three of you. And Rousan, great work. Thank you. Much appreciated.
They probably sent that before he came on.
Yeah. We
It's
got a
all
couple to
good.
go. Yeah. John needs to leave his DBZ blasphemy. Okay, you heard it, John. You're wrong about Dragon Ball Z.
No.
Sorry.
Fight me, bro.
As a critic of the literary framework model of Genesis, how do we reconcile the poetic and polemic language of Genesis 1? So I mean, you don't need to reconcile. This is just the aspect of it's just another aspect of Genesis 1 along with the framework aspects of it. I mean, it's not like they're contradictory. All this stuff is going on in Genesis at once. So one more, then we're going to get back to some clips. How can the old covenant fully pass away? Hebrews 3:18, if elements of the new covenant remain unfulfilled.
Uh-oh.
Well, that's up for debate. Like, if you go to John 19, John says, he said these words, I thirst to fulfill the scriptures. So are the scriptures fulfilled? I mean, Jesus said he came to fulfill the scriptures, and John says he fulfilled the scriptures. And then Hebrews 8 says it's passing away because it's been fulfilled. So I'm not really sure what you would mean what parts of the new covenant are not fulfilled. I mean, like the second coming. Well, that's not part of the old. That's part of the new. And it just hasn't happened yet. But all the parts of the old have been fulfilled in Christ would be the argument. So, all right, let's get to a clip here. I want to get this. This is, a baptism clip here. And then I might have to play an important video from the Lutheran satire if I must.
Peers.
I think baptism is more of a spiritual, like symbolic one, right? Of course, if you have an actual water baptism, it is a declaration of faith, and it is an opportunity for us to preach the gospel, because at the end of the day, the gospel is what's going to save us, right?
Amen.
Not being dunked in water, right? So, and that's why Paul, when he wrote all the epistles, he also mentioned in Corinthians that I come not to baptize, but to preach the gospel. So I think truthfully, preaching the gospel is symbolic of, washing away your sins, It's the very core message of Jesus. It's the testimony of Jesus to have the blood wash away all of your sins. Now, the water baptism is just symbolic of that. Whether that's up to the families or not, we shouldn't worry about it causing division. As long as we keep everything gospel-centric, I think it won't divide anything, right? So it's not like, oh, you got to do this. And if we are to do those things, as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:22, to the weak I became weak so that I could save some of them. So I am all things to all men so that I can save some of them. Instead of getting into these quarrels about this is the right baptism, this isn't. If we keep it all focused on Jesus and the gospel, there is no division, right? So I think if you just focus on that, if they want to get baptized, great. If they don't, great. We don't have to argue about those things.
So
right?
what's the gospel say about baptism then?
The gospel is the true, I would say, the spiritual baptism. Because
Okay, so they bring up the thief on the cross a little bit here, but I mean that line about if they want to get baptized, if they don't want to get baptized,
That's
no, that is not right. No, no.
I feel like whether you're Protestant, Catholic, or Orthodox, you should at least be able to look at the words of Jesus and see that this is one of the two ordinances, or whatever you want to call them, that Jesus has commanded us to do. And to say something like, well, whether or not you want to get baptized or not, that's okay, or however he said it, that means that you think it's okay to not follow the commands of Jesus, which I think is an issue, regardless of whether or not how you view the ontology of baptism or any of the sacraments in themselves or the ordinances. Again, whatever you want to say, Jesus has commanded these things, these two things. Baptism is in it, and to say that it's not a big deal,
It's a huge deal.
yeah.
Well,
It's a huge deal.
I think baptism is clearly a command from Jesus, and I think everybody should get baptized. If I had to steel man what Johnny was saying, perhaps it's something like it doesn't matter if you want to get baptized. We can work on that as we work through this process with you, meaning that come along, be a part of, taste and see that the Lord is good, give your life to Jesus, and in time, if you have this is a stumbling block for you because you fill in a blank. You think baptism is a work. You think baptism is a unnecessary ritual, right? We will work through that with you, and eventually you will get baptized. If I had to steel man what I think he was saying. So
I hope you're right.
yeah,
I do too.
yeah. So I think there are people, I've known people that are that feel a certain way about baptism. And I think the conversation, when you have these things and you work through these things within a small group setting, in a community setting, a local ecclesia setting, you work through those things and you go, wait, man, you should get baptized. You should get baptized. It's a command from Jesus. Get baptized. Baptism saves. Whether you agree in baptismal regeneration or not, it is a command. Do it. And I think that's fairly straightforward. He's probably also dealing with a lot of people that were baptized as kids and aren't sure if they should or shouldn't get baptized, right? But I think generally speaking, yes, you should get baptized. There's nothing wrong with telling people get baptized, repent and believe, baptize. That is an important sacrament.
Listen, this whole talk that baptism is just symbolic, that's some very modern idea. The historical church up until very recent has been very clear. Baptism saves. And I have a very important way to show this to you.
Baptism saves? Dude, you ever heard of the thief on the cross?
Yes.
He wasn't baptized, so how can you say that baptism saves?
Look, if you want to know what baptism is and what it does, you really should look at the Bible verses that tell us what baptism is and what it does. And the thief on the cross bit isn't talking about baptism, so that passage won't tell us whether baptism saves.
Baptism saves?
Oh, come on.
Dude, you ever heard of the thief on the cross?
Yes, but instead of determining our baptismal theology based on the thief on the cross, which is not about baptism, we should look at Titus 3, where Paul tells us that the washing of regeneration and renewal of the Holy Spirit, aka baptism, has saved us. We should look at Romans 6, where he tells us that baptism makes us dead to sin and alive to Christ, which is another way of saying baptism saves. And I don't know, maybe we should look at 1 Peter 3, where the apostle explicitly says baptism now saves you. So, regardless of the thief on the cross. Because the Bible clearly says that baptism saves, we should also be able to say baptism saves.
Baptism saves?
No, not again.
Dude,
You know what the joke is? I'm gonna just jump ahead here to show you.
Saves.
baptism
Is that
saves?
Driscoll? Is that Mark Driscoll?
Have you ever
on
heard of the thief on the cross?
Yes, I've
Does
heard
it
of
just
the
keep
thief on the cross.
looping?
I was there when it
Yeah, it just keeps looping, and here's why.
happened.
Whoa, you're the thief on the cross. Wait, where am I then? This doesn't look like paradise.
I'm the other thief on the cross.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What up, dude? Hey, how's this customized eternal damnation experience working out for you?
Oh, the one where I spend the rest of eternity having an endless loop argument with a Baptist about whether the repentant thief on the cross disproves baptismal regeneration?
Yeah, that one.
Not very fun, dude. Kind of want to stab myself in the soul right now.
Awesome.
Yo, is that Mark Driscoll?
No, that's a Lutheran satire. Hans. He's a
No,
Lutheran
no, no, no.
pastor.
Is that Mark Driscoll in the jeans and t-shirt?
Oh, is that? I never even
Go back.
thought
That looks
to
like
look.
a young Mark Driscoll.
Let me see. I'll put it up here. Is that Mark Driscoll?
Can you zoom in?
No, I can't zoom in. It's a YouTube video. I don't know if it is or not.
That's hilarious.
It might be. It might be a young Mark Driscoll. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's a difference between saying baptism saves, baptism is a command, and is baptism absolutely necessary for salvation? And I think that's what people get hung up on is like, yes, the thief on the cross wasn't baptized. However, you should still get baptized.
Yeah.
The problem is the language he was using was he made it very much sound like, hey, this is like an optional thing that you can participate in. And I think that's like the problematic language that we should be very careful of using. Because like, even if it is or isn't for salvation, it's a commandment. It's something that Jesus did. It's something that we're supposed to follow. And so the language that when we're talking about baptism is like, if you're a Christian, you should get baptized. Period. And it shouldn't matter if it is for salvation or is not for salvation. You should do it. And that should be the end. Not like kind of sort of wish-washy, like get it done.
Well, the argument is simply
I want to be a little fair to him just because there's a lot of nuance. Like Rousan just gave us 3 different questions that you could be asking when it comes to this topic. And I think if I'm like interpreting this as charitably as I can, I think what he's just saying is that baptism isn't absolutely necessary for salvation, right? Like that's really what he's trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the historical thing of the church.
Right,
Baptism saves, but there are other ways God can save you, like God saved
Correct.
Abraham, even though he wasn't baptized. But baptism does save you. That is the historical position of the church up until very recently.
Yeah. So
But
all I was trying to do is to try to be charitable to him is say something like, it's really hard to communicate and unpack a lot of that nuance and what you're really trying to get at. And if I'm going to be super charitable to him, I think it was just a matter of not communicating it as clearly as he could have. I don't think he would sit there and tell somebody that doesn't want to get baptized, oh, it's not a big deal. Because I think if you don't want to get baptized, I think he would agree with us and say, well, something is going on here then.
Sure. Yeah. I think the problem isn't just in the language of like saying the words of it's not necessary, because to a layman who's not studying this, people who know don't dedicate their life to studying scripture day in, day out, they hear the words it's not necessary, they register in their brain, I don't have to get baptized. And what somebody's actually trying to convey,
necessary condition,
right?
In the philosophical sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did he say it's not necessary? Was it that language used? It's not necessary.
Really did come across that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be shocked if someone that is in Johnny Chang's local church has never been baptized, is getting plugged in, is walking with Jesus. Baptism comes around every quarter, and then they're like, man, I don't know if I want to get baptized. And then Johnny Chang is like, yeah, dude, you don't got to get baptized. I
don't think he was conveying that.
Yeah, I don't think that's his position. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's like that does seem to be something that people get hung up on, is what is necessary to get to heaven. And then you look at the thief on the cross, and it's the grace of God that gets us to heaven. But that doesn't mean you don't continue, you don't go on living like the world just because Jesus's blood gets you into heaven. Like you still have to repent. You still have to be born again. You still have to live a different life. And that doesn't mean that that's what saves you. It just means that is something a part of the Christian journey, and we all have to be comfortable with that.
So with that, I want to get to another clip here. Rousan, someone in the chat said your mic's a little low. So
Yeah, I just
while
bumped it.
play-
I just bumped it. Hopefully that's better.
Cool. So now we're gonna get to the thing where it's like,
Oh no.
oh yeah, oh yeah, you knew it was coming.
Oh
See a
god.
lot
Oh,
of
the praying to saints.
for the saints. And to me, it's like, and I'm hanging myself up to dry. I used to do this. I used to fast for saints. I used to pray to saints. And then I'm not gonna lie, no, I did it. Like they wanted me to. They wanted me to. Even as a little kid, I just never did it. I didn't feel comfortable. I just wanted to talk to Jesus. I don't understand why you had to talk to the middleman. Like I didn't like that. And even at a younger age, but I just wanted to be relatable for them. But there's people that I love that do that. But I just felt like I was lying there, and I don't want to lie. But praying to saints, I have a lot of people that I love that they do that. So I don't want to look like I'm harping on this. But Jesus says there is nobody that goes to the Father but besides me. If you want to talk to him, talk to me. And then there's another Bible verse that says, do not talk to the dead, right? And then there's some people that are like, well, are they dead? Because the thief on the cross said that today you'll be with me in paradise. So there might be some people that are alive. That kind of threw me for a little spin. I'm not going to lie. But I just want to know that when I'm praying, I find it more valuable to get in my prayer closet alone and speak to my king. And then also go to people that correct me and teach me and say, hey, Cliff, I've done this a lot. Cliff, could you pray for me? And every time, by the way, if you ever got off the phone with him, he says a prayer for you. So I'm going to put his number in the description. I'm kidding. But I have brothers and sisters pray for me because they're here. And a lot of priests would come up to me. They're like, do you have your mother pray for you? Why would you not have Peter pray for you or Mary pray for you? And my example was, I'm like, well, they're alive right now. And we're here as a community and as a church, we're united. So I think that's the reason, one. And I'm like, two, my example would be, if the disciples were there, why wouldn't they tell them to pray to Isaac or David or Abraham? Why would they weren't told to do that? So I don't want, that's all my opinion, right? But that's meaningless. My heart could be wrong. What does the gospel say about praying to saints? And who should you pray towards? Everybody's like,
the
I'm
most anointed one.
And Stuart or Glenn.
Let me just say this.
Oh, wait, we got one.
You did a great job of steel manning our Orthodox and Catholic brothers and sisters. It's not that they pray to saints,
Yeah.
it's that they ask the saints to pray for them.
Yes.
So we want to be fair and charitable,
Yeah.
and actually represent them.
And by the way,
And
these
that's-
men have great hearts. These women have great hearts. They're the ones that are out there feeding the homeless, being with the widows. I am not putting my finger in their face and saying, you guys are wrong, which, by the way, I did. And that's why I was quarrelsome. And that's why my parents and loved ones are like, dude, this guy ain't it. It was my actions. It's not that their hearts are like, we need Mary, we need this, but they're truly are like, they're looking at it as like, kind of like how we are. If I want to meet you, but you know him, like, hey, Andrew, could you talk to him for me? I really, really want to like speak to him. They're not doing it in a satanic way. But I have to admit, a lot of times they give a lot of praise and glory to these saints.
the hyperdulia of
Yes.
Mary.
And so I can't hide that aspect of it. And also, I see them kiss the cross. I see them kiss Mary. I see them kiss the ring. I won't do that. I will not do that.
Yeah, so I think you're totally right. They view it in the same way that I could ask Cliff to pray for me. They're viewing it as I'm going to ask. I've asked Catholic priests, like, hey, so can I ask Charles Spurgeon to pray for me? Can I ask C.S. Lewis to pray for me? And they'll be like, yeah.
No.
Yeah. We have multiple clips of this. So from their paradigm, that's what they're saying. And there's also a value of knowing some of these saints and what they've done and how they've become more sinless and that whole bit. But from a very lay standpoint, like I go to the source. Jesus is the only mediator. So I'm going to go to
He
Jesus.
made it very clear.
Yeah.
He said.
So there we have that whole clip there. Rousan, what are your whole thoughts on all what was going on there? I mean,
So I think this is where we got to give people in George in his situation some room to ask these questions.
Yeah.
Because this is the disconnect that's frustrating for me, is that anyone who has had a conversation with a Catholic apologist understands what they mean in these things. Meaning that, like when I talk to Trent Horn, they're not praying to the saints in the sense that they think that the saints are divine. They're asking the saints to pray for them. However, how does that translate on a lay level? How does that translate on the person who seems to be extending a form of worship to Mary, a form of worship to saints, bowing? Like, I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, but I've seen people on their grounds kissing and crying over the ground that Jesus supposedly laid on, right? And that stuff is a bit much. And so I think we have to allow people to ask these questions and to process these things and to explore without like jumping on their throat and being like, you idiot. Like I saw folks saying that like George is a clown and all these sorts of things. And I think that's the part where I go, you got to let people ask these questions. And respectfully, Catholics, like what you do in moderation, the people who are following you and maybe aren't as educated, they're going to do in excess. So like I think the average Catholic around here, I don't think that they're the one that's educated and the one that understands the catechism and it's gone through the whole process. I don't think that they're worshiping idols, and I don't think that they're doing these things. But you go down to a cultural level, you go down to the people that don't read their Bible, that don't know church history, and it can get real murky and it can get very, very sus. And so like that's a fair question and a fair conversation to have.
I will throw you a bone here. There are some reports that show that certain people in Latin America do pray to Mary more than Jesus, and that's
a problem.
That's a problem for me. I know Catholics that have a problem with that too.
Yeah,
So I see that as well. I think though, like the whole like praying to saints, it's perfectly fine as long as you understand you're just asking for intercessory prayer. I don't think there's anything wrong with getting emotional around a saints. Like, you know, if I had a family member died and I came across like their favorite chair, and remember that I may get emotional about that too. Like it's like just brings back all sorts of important memories. If you see a statue of a saint who did these really great things, it was really inspiring you, and you come to one of their relics, you could very well be really moved by that and just have an emotional feeling where you want to get down on your knees and go into that kind of state. So I think I think what needs to be happening is just more education around. We need to educate people more on these kinds of things so that it doesn't become this sort of idea where we replace the saints with Jesus. Because I know a lot of strong Catholics that are concerned about the lay people doing that, and they do think it's perfectly fine. And I don't see anything as if it contradicts scripture. This whole idea about don't pray to dead saints, they're dead. No. Yeah. No, the Bible is very clear. Jesus is very clear. God is the God of the living.
Yeah.
And he said that to the Sadducees, who said like what he brought up Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And when God appeared before Moses in the burning bush, he said, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Why? Because these saints, these patriarchs are still alive because God is the God of the living. He didn't say I was the God of them. He still is. So when you're praying to saints or asking for intercessory prayer, they're alive in Jesus. They're not dead.
And I just want to touch on something real quick. That word pray too, like it's a modern idea that's specifically just for the Lord. The word pray traditionally is like to request, like you're making a request of something. So if I ask Than to do something for me, I'm technically praying to him. I'm making a request. So when you say you're praying to the saints, you're just making a request. So I could pray to a saint and say, hey, can you pray on my behalf for X, Y, and Z? Just like I can go to Than and say, hey, can you pray on my behalf for X, Y, and Z? And I think that's where people get mixed up, is that word pray seems to only be used in the sense for the Lord, and that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, and especially in the ancient context. Like if you go back and you read like the letter of Baruch, like they're talking about things that are, you know, very, very important in, like, for example, Catholic theology or Maccabees, for example.
Yes.
So things to keep in mind when you're going into that kind of stuff. So I want to get to this next clip, and then we'll get to some more super chats here. I think this is I think where it finally got interesting, and Rousan nailed it on this area here.
I've said, I love you guys, but I'll never love you more than my God. It's impossible for me to love the gift greater than the gift giver. Since we're already in just deep, hard conversations, let's go deeper. Sorry about this, by the way, guys. You guys are going to get clipped hard, but you know what? We're in this together.
Like, why are you apologizing?
He called it.
Like, why are you apologizing? This is what they're supposed to be doing. This is is hell eternal pain topic.
I got smoked out for hell. Like my depiction of hell. Johnny's like, don't bring this up, bro. Don't be quarrelsome. But these are conversations. The reason I bring them up is because you know this more than anybody, guys. So many people walked away from church and from God because of this aspect. So I just wanted to ask your guys' opinion. What is your perception of hell when it comes to the gospel? Should I go first? Because it's a little uncomfortable. Would you guys want me to go first? Or does somebody want to jump up and talk about it?
Go ahead.
I think that hell is eternal. The place of hell is eternal. But I read scriptures like, do not be afraid of the man who could destroy the body, but could destroy the body and the soul in hell. And when I read stuff like this, like no root, no branch, no nothing will be in its destruction. So when I see this, I think destruction. If you choose to live away from God, you do not have life. To me, it's like also Jesus says, eternal life is with me. So how can I have eternal life away from him? Separated. These are the thoughts that I have in my head. I'm just a baby Christian. I'm just learning. And another thing is, let's dive even deeper from like an aspect that's not religious, from a man who's like, you serve a God that says that you have free will, but it's basically like the same free will that the government gave us about COVID. Like, hey, you don't have to take the vaccine, but if you don't, you can't have your job. You can't go to school. You can't. So, all right, buddy, it's not a choice. He's like, you're strong arming me. And to me, it's like I walked around the neighborhood one day and I was like, God, I don't know if I love you because I'm deeply scared of you or because I actually love you. And that sucks. I wouldn't want her marrying me because of that. I want to clarify that if God even came down right now and said, no, actually, hell is eternal and I torture them forever, I'd be like, aye, Captain, and I'll knock on everybody's door and let them know about it. I would love if somebody could bring up scripture to correct me. I am not saying that I have the answers, nor do I think that it's right, but I think it's a strong arming love.
Yeah, I think the part that I wrestle with, George, is the end of Matthew 25, the separation of the sheep from the goats. It ends in verse 46. It says, then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. And
eternal punishment. Like it's finished. It's done. And if you keep reading, that's the Bible verse that in 28, that's
a big one annihilationists go to.
Says, do not be afraid of the man who could destroy the body, but could destroy the body and the soul in hell. So if the body is not there and the soul is not there, then what is left over to be tortured?
Yeah. So when I read eternal, the righteous and the unrighteous, eternal. Now, that's the way I've always read it. I hope you're right. I hope what you're describing.
But question, don't you think that's a little like, let's peel back the curtain. Let's be raw. I don't think God gets mad when we test his words because his words are forever, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It's good to test them because then I'll know if I could break it, then it ain't from God, it's from man. And if I can't, then it's from God, and then I'll worship that word. To me, it's like, how could you say that I've given you free will when you didn't give me free will? That's not free will. I have to choose you. I have to, or I'm going to be destroyed forever and always. That's not free will.
Yeah. So I take C.S. Lewis's view of hell, which is the gates of hell are locked from the inside. So I don't think anyone is in hell that didn't choose to be there.
Yeah.
But that goes against torturing. The lake of fire is like they're burning forever and always.
Would you say they're torturing and they're in agonizing pain, or they just?
I have no idea. What I'm saying is, I don't think God is going to force a bunch of people that want nothing to do with him to spend an eternity with them. And so the gates of hell are locked from the inside. Now, to be fair to you, George, there have been throughout church history folks that have held to what you're describing sounds like an annihilationist perspective.
Yeah.
So you're not in this like, George is crazy. Oh my gosh, he's on the edge of heresy. There are people in there, and there are groups that do hold and have held historically different positions on hell potentially being an annihilationist destination.
Yeah, like for example, I think Justin Martyr has a
Justin
passage in
Martyr.
Dialogue with Trypho, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think Ignatius might even at one point. So, I thought you handled that pretty well, Rousan. I thought good bringing up C.S. Lewis. This whole idea that God is like literally torturing people in hell is just like a divine comedy from Dante's Inferno. It's not.
Yeah, a lot of Dante Inferno influence on our view of hell today, it seems like.
Yeah, it's. Yeah. I mean, the historical picture is like an annihilationist one, or it's like they're sort of like, now that there is this historical picture, like if you read the Apocalypse of Peter, that the people are being tortured in hell in these horrible fashions. But I mean, there's also the historical picture that is just sort of like a place you sort of go away to experience the shame of your sin, exiled from God, this sort of sense. It's not this picture that people are literally being boiled alive in a lake of fire necessarily. I feel like that's sort of thrust upon us, and that's not a position that we are forced to take anywhere in Scripture.
Yeah.
I've read multiple views on hell and the afterlife. Some folks holding, I'm seeing here Justin Martyr, Ignatius, Augustine, Irenaeus. There's quite a few folks that have held to an annihilationist view. It seems from church history. I can't pull out all the quotes right now.
Yeah.
There's folks that hold to a view later on with purgatory. There's even some folks that I have to pull the quotes, but that held to some sort of like ultimate universalism. You know, that there's some
Origin.
Origin.
Yeah, was it Origin? Yeah.
Maximus the Confessor.
Yeah, so I say all that to say, like, I think there was a diversity of views among early church fathers and apostolic fathers around hell, and it's not this monolith that we now look at everything from this modern view that it's eternal and it's conscious and it's, you know, nonstop torture. I think that's a very modern view and probably a lot inspired by Dante's Inferno than church history.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. Is like people have this idea of hell that God, it's like a torture chamber for, you know, you either accept God or you're tortured for eternity. And this is just not the picture of hell we see in Scripture. It's this idea that this is basically the result of people rejecting God and what that actually means. I mean, it's, in the Orthodox Church's website, they have this saying where they say like the same fire of heaven is the same fire of hell. For the saints, it's this glorious thing. For those who reject God, it is eternal torment. It's how you respond to God. And if you're responding to God in this way, that where you want to be your own master, your own Lord, that fire will be torturous. But for the saints who've surrendered to God, it will be glorious.
It's like the C.S. Lewis kind of viewpoint, right? I think it was Great Divorce, where it's like you're in the presence of God, but you can't recognize it, you can't see it, and you're constantly seeking out your own sin, and you're never fulfilled by that, and that's ultimately what's destroying you. But if at any point you were able, you could turn and you could see that God is just there, and you just have to accept it. But at this point, you've been given over to your own depravity, and so that's the only thing you're going to follow is your own sin. So ultimately, it's not God that's torturing you. It's not demons that are torturing you. It's actually yourself. It's your own sin and your own desires that's causing your despair.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's
I
good.
did not. So wait, just correct me if I'm wrong. So is George Janko an annihilationist?
Yeah, he seems to be right as an annihilationist right now from everything I'm gathering. And it sounds like that was a hang up for him.
I'm an annihilationist, so I'm not gonna argue against them, I guess.
Yeah,
So-
I don't have any problem with annihilationism. I ultimately I would say I don't know my exact position on it. I think that verse at the end of Matthew 25 is kind of hard, you know, like eternal.
Have you looked into the Greek debates there about what aionion is supposed to mean and all that stuff?
No.
Oh, okay.
If I Blue Letter Bible will pull up the
Yeah,
word
and
eternal
I can show you some stuff afterwards too if you want. But the word eternal, aionios, can refer to an age rather than like an infinite temporal sequence, if that makes sense. And there's a lot of other stuff that you need to consider too. So there's a lot of really dorky stuff that you can consider when it comes to this kind of stuff, especially when you get into like the metaphysics aspects, because the eternality of the human soul was a Neoplatonically sourced belief, and that had to, in my opinion, had a lot to deal with some of the views of hell and how that came about too. But
you're an animal universalist, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, we should talk about that one day.
Yeah. I personally am an eventual annihilationist, and then I think the process of hell is what annihilates people. I don't think God does it because he's life. He's not going to throw someone out of existence. He only gives life. But if you want to go through the process of annihilating yourself, it'll be torturous, and that's called hell. So that's my view. So I think it's hell is there, but it's not eternal necessarily unless soul because God keeps creating. You know,
he's driving through a tunnel.
Oh man, we're losing Mike.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, losing me to what?
No, you're good now.
Oh,
to heresy.
Who knows? I have
that
no
was
idea.
God shutting you up.
Oh, he does.
That's amazing.
Freaking internet. I want to, if we have time, I want to get to that clip on the Eucharist because I want to talk about that and what the actual official doctrines are on that.
It was nice hanging out with you guys. I'm out of here. If that's okay.
Yeah, I just did a video on this today, on the Eucharist bit, and I don't think George was saying that the Eucharist is dirt because that's what was kind of propagated. I think what he was saying was the icons that are created out of the same matter, and I think he was referencing the icons. I don't think he was saying it was the actual Eucharist is dirt.
Have you heard of the way the Catholic Church sort of explains Eucharist in transubstantiation?
So they believe. Yeah, so I hold to a view of real presence in communion. I think real presence is evidence and fairly straightforward. I think we do need to feast on the blood and the body of Jesus. I think that they say that it is truly the blood and the body of Jesus. And obviously you got the passage in John. Where I am confused on is like, I think lay Catholics will say the word literally. They'll say literally, it's the blood of Jesus, literally. And I would go, literally sounds like the molecules are changing.
No, here's
right?
here's the way they explain. They use Aristotelian categories to explain it. So the molecules don't change in Catholic doctrine,
which is what every priest has told me. The molecules don't change.
You got to understand the difference between substance and accidents in Aristotelian categories. So substance would be the essence of something. Accidents would be like things that could change. So take a dog. There's an essence of a dog, and then like an accident would be like the color of the fur, how fluffy it is, the length of the legs. Those can change. So what Catholic doctrine would say on transubstantiation is the substance changes without any of the accidents changing. So it still has the accidents of bread and wine while it becomes the actual substance of the body and blood of Jesus. So that's kind of how they get it. So that's why they can say the molecules don't change, because the molecules would be manifestations of the accidents, whereas the underlying like spiritual substance would change though.
Yeah, so I think this is where based on what I've heard Catholics describe and based on what you just described, Michael Jones, I don't know where I would disagree.
We shouldn't, because that's right.
I don't know where we I don't know where we disagree, right? Now, again, there are Protestants.
There's other views too.
There's Protestants that hold what is it called, a memorial view, where they think it's like strictly in remembrance and it's more of a symbol.
The first person to come up with that was Zwingli during the Reformation. So John Calvin even didn't hold to that. One of his like students, Zwingli, came up with it, and he's the first one in history to do it. So it's like one of those things like, why don't we see this in the historical church? Because you read Ignatius, Polycarp, I don't know Polycarp's but Irenaeus, Justin Martyr, they're all like, this
Luther
is
too, right? Like Luther held a very literal
in Lutheran
view, or
churches,
true view of community. Yeah,
and I think you can argue the Didache as well. Like I think that's like a pretty, and that's like one of the earliest writings we have.
Yeah, Lutherans get accused of holding to consubstantiation, which they don't. When that's the idea that there's two substances. But what Luther actually said is he doesn't want to use Aristotelian categories. Yeah, so it really is.
You do the in, with, and under thing, right? Yeah. We don't. It's like they would say, we don't know how to explain this. It's a mystery, but it is the body and blood of Jesus. If you talk to like Lutheran theologians, they'll say, if you have to nail me down, it's transubstantiation, but we don't actually say that in any doctrine. Kind of thing. What's the difference between what the Lutherans say and what like Eastern or Oriental Orthodox people do? Because the Orthodox Church does the Metasius view, which is that they define it more apophatically, right? They're more Mysterian in it. Is there a difference between?
No, I mean, just a lot of language semantics, but I mean, ultimately, I feel like a lot of the historical churches, the high churches, are saying a lot of the same stuff. And that's just me extending charity. It's really like the evangelical churches that are like, it's just symbolic, or it can't be because they're following Zwingli. And I think that's problematic ultimately.
Yeah, I would agree that the idea that it's just symbolic is not historical, and I would say is not biblical. Because if it was just symbolic, then why is Paul telling people in Corinthians like don't partake because you're casting judgment on yourself and you could get sick and die, right? So it's clearly not just symbolic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, let's get to some super chats because they are piling up. IP, you made a long video a time ago saying the ontological argument is the best argument. Do you still think that? No, that was like 20 years ago. I think contingency arguments are better. So moved on.
Don't you love that?
My mind might be changed in that. Philosopher, he's black, jacked, just wrote that huge textbook. Do you remember? You got
talking about Sijuwadi?
Yes, there you go. I was brain farting. Thank you so much. He's Mike. He's sending you the book, by the way, too. The rational ontological argument, and we'll have him on at some point to talk about it. I don't know what he's gonna say in that argument, but it's Sijuwadi, and he says he always has good stuff. So.
Just a quick side question. Did Sijuwadi, does he reject classical logic? Does he take a new form? This is what I've heard through the grapevine. Or am I wrong about that?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I do. Ask.
I take a three value logic system. George Janko feels like an atheist parody of Christian influencers.
It took a second for that to register.
That's funny. That's funny. Hey man, y'all give George some break, man. George he said himself he's a newbie. Like, what do you guys want? The guy is newer to the faith. He's trying to process this stuff. He has the people around him. You guys just give him a break.
To full disclosure, I'm not making fun of him. I don't think
I know you're not. I'm talking about the chat. Like the chat is torching him, but then the chat's kind of torching everybody right now.
Yeah, that's what the chat does.
That's what they do.
That's what internet anonymity is for.
Hey, IP, I loved your lecture on Saturday. Well, thank you for attending. I was wondering, since you're a nerd as well, why don't you use a certain Parthenax quote to help? Because isn't that like a Skyrim thing? I don't know much about that. I've never played, so that's why. Because
Is it I don't even know.
Parthenax was a dragon from Skyrim.
It was.
Hey, we gotta go to the residential nerd here to figure it out. Thank you, Than. My
The
issue with
residential
Pascal.
nerd that can bench more than you.
What's your bench? What's your PR?
Back in the day, before I had a long string of surgeries, I could bench 405 for yeah.
For how many?
For 3 reps.
Come on, bro. What did you have? You had a surgery to what? Sorry, I'm too super.
Oh, it's okay. So the last year I've been getting back into like bodybuilding and everything. Actually, this is what I do professionally. Aside from this stuff, is bodybuilding, coaching, and like nutrition science and stuff like that. But anyway, I had a long string of surgeries for a personal thing that I'll tell you privately again if you want to. But I had about 12 surgeries in 2 years.
He used to be a woman.
Yeah, he was. Still is, really. I mean,
The
my
TRT
issue
probably helped.
Am I a pretty woman? Aiming Upwards says, my issue with Pascal's wager is that it focuses on self-centered happiness. Abraham lost his old life betting it on the possibility that God will keep his promise, despite the evidence pointing against that possibility. So the thing about Pascal's wager is I wouldn't say it's I mean, I feel like Abraham had plenty of evidence. He had a literal deity showing up, telling him things are going to happen in the future. For us, it's sort of like an end result thing. If you go through all the evidence and you still 50-50, you can't decide. Pascal's wager is supposed to be like the tipping point. Like, well, what are you going to do now? Like, it's at the end of the day, which is better ultimately? After you've studied all the evidence, you still want to be unsure given infinite pleasure versus infinite damnation, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how that works. And I think Abraham had plenty of evidence if God is literally talking to him. So I'm only here for Big John the Humble and Than and IP. Good. Absolutely.
I would not describe John as humble. I'm just kidding.
No, I'm the most humble, bro. I am the most humble that ever humbled. Like you and I can have a humble off right now, and I'm going to school you.
You heard it. There you go. Real Christian Avengers meeting, the Blessed God Summit in a month.
Let's
See
go.
that?
Nice.
There we go.
Oh, come on now, Big Mac. You guys are coming to the. Hey, do you guys want to come? And if you guys want to come, I'll comp you guys some tickets. You guys should come hang out with me and IP.
I think I'm too far away.
Where are you at?
I'm in Canada.
Oof. What part of Canada?
Other side.
I'm close to New York. I'll say that. I don't want to dox myself.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
He's in a different time zone. He's not even in Eastern Standard Time.
No.
He's in the other. He's like 4 hours off or something from Pacific. It's insane. Than can come though, I guess, if you wanna.
We already talked about me coming. I'm just trying to figure out if I can put the money together to come. That's the big thing right now.
Well, we got you on a ticket, and you could crash with IP. I'm getting him a room.
See,
We'll see how this goes. Mike and I are going to be staying in the same hotel next week for a speaking gig. So if he snores too much,
you got one of those big machines that you put on your face.
I got one of those. I got a sleep apnea machine. I hate it.
I'm a light sleeper.
I just shared a room with my buddy Ray Rock in London, and he had one of those, and it progressively got worse every night. We had to put towels and blankets over it because it was so daggone loud. And then I had this crazy apocalyptic dream because the white noise from the machine made it into my dream. And I thought we were all getting disintegrated. It's pretty crazy. Anyway.
Do Protestants have an invalid Eucharist as Eastern Orthodox say?
I'll let you answer this, IP.
I don't. I think if they believe in the real presence, if they use bread and wine, I have a problem with the grape juice. I think that's invalid, honestly. That's just me. That's just where I'm coming from. Historically, they've used wine. It's never been grape juice. I feel like that is problematic. But not all Protestants do that. Like
I use pineapple juice. Is that a problem?
Yes, John, it is a problem.
So Protestants do have a valid Eucharist according to IP?
Some.
We need
I'd
to
say-
get one of those, Mike. Matt, find a soundboard. I know you're
Matt!
listening to this.
Matt, I know you're
There's-
listening. Find a
there's-
soundboard. Matt!
I think it's ultimately going to depend on whether or not you believe in holy orders, right? So, like, if you hold the holy orders, you're going to have to say that the person who's doing the Eucharist has to have the apostolic succession for it to be valid. If you don't hold to holy orders, then it's a little bit more open. So, I think it's going to depend on whether you put
Oh.
validation in that.
I have an
Oh.
elite new member, the apostate
Ooh.
prophet. You see? Yo,
I'm meant
keep
to
him in your...
react to his video today. I love this video that he came out with. Shout out to
Yeah.
Apostate Prophet.
Oh, yeah. Everyone watch that. Keep him in your prayers.
Great. That was
Speaking
great.
of apostate prophet, Muhammad's superpower is his leather straps. Now, do you know about that, Rousan?
I
There-
remember. Did David Wood talk about that?
There's a hadith. There's a hadith where Muhammad says, the eyes are the leather strap of the anus.
the leather strap.
Yes. And we bring that up because they'll say Muhammad was so elegant in how he spoke, and how could he
Oh,
not be
man.
divine? So we bring that up. Oh, like when he said the eyes are the leather strap of the anus. Yeah, you know, such a great
Eyes
speaker.
Are the leather strap of the anus. That's great.
I'm gonna let you think about that. I'll explain
I'm,
it.
sure,
Later.
I'm marinating on it. Yeah.
You gotta
There's
marinate on that one.
there's some wild hadiths, bro. There's a hadith
Yeah.
where a rock rebukes Moses because of the size of his member. You guys ever read that one?
Oh, it gets crazy. Oh man,
Yeah.
it is some crazy. There's stuff about him and Diha al-Kabi hanging out behind a sheet together, and no one's allowed to interrupt them. And then other hadiths about his
When I
child
Googled it-
bride.
I googled that
Creepy.
quote and it says, according to the Prophet Muhammad, our eyes are like a leather strap that holds our anus in place. Therefore, it is important to cleanse ourselves with obulation before we sleep in order to maintain proper hygiene and cleanliness.
Is he saying that, like, if you lose your eyeballs, your anus? Just
No, he's
falls
saying
out?
like if you stay awake, when you're awake, you can, keep that under control. When you go to sleep, you don't know what comes out. So when you get up, clean yourself, because when your eyes are open, it's like there's a leather strap there. When they're closed, the leather strap's gone.
That's poetry, bro. That's deep.
Poetry.
Is that it? Is that what we're going?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Lily J's superpower is ChatGPT. certainly. Yes, absolutely. If you're using medical Mary Jane and you don't smoke to the point where you're not able to function and keep your wits about you, is it still a sin? Like, how is it? How's it with wine and being drunk? Yeah, I don't think it's a sin in that regard.
Hold on.
Wow.
If you're using medicinal, is that what she says?
Yeah.
Medical? Okay, medicinal.
Med-
Mary Jane, and you don't smoke to the
medical.
point where you are not able to function and keep your wits about you, is that still a sin? Like how it allows wine but not to be drunk. Yeah, so when I talk about cannabis, I'm not talking about medicinal cannabis. That's not what I'm talking about. And anyone that's ever been around the culture of cannabis will tell you that it's not about a medicinal use. It's not someone that is using cannabis because they have pain and they're using it as pain relief, right? They're using cannabis. They're part of the culture. They're basking in it. They're celebrating it. The cannabis that you get now is more potent. It's intended to get you more high. So this whole like, we're going to pretend like cannabis isn't getting you high is absolutely nonsense. California, Colorado, it's bad. Like, I know people that have, I'm not being hyperbolic, I know people that have lost their mind and had psychotic breaks from bad cannabis or good cannabis, depending on how you want to define it. So this idea that like, hey, it's all good, no, man, like most people are smoking to get high as possible. And what that does, especially to a brain that's under 25, is bad. It is bad. It is not good. It is terrible for you. Now, if you went and fought in a war and you're using it for medicinal purposes, or you got back injury, that is not, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about the person that is using it recreationally, trying to get high. That is not without consequence. That usually brings harm to people.
Yeah, kids, don't get high. Go to a high church instead.
Oh my gosh.
I
Bring
wish I
Ken-
could kick you out of your own stream.
No, I can kick you out though. But bring Ken Ham.
Ken Ham. Oh gosh, that's your man, guy. It's your man. Hey, I got a jet here in a
Yo,
second.
No worries.
Did you have any more clips, or are you just doing super chats?
No, I think we're just going to close out with some super chats now. We got a lot to go through. So if you want a jet, go for it. We're going to go through these.
Yeah, I'm going to get out of here, guys. Thank you so much. Hopefully, I'll see some of you guys along with IP at the Last God Summit. If not,
Yeah.
it's all good. I still love you guys.
Definitely John. If not,
No,
we'll come
no
kidnap
Canadians
him.
allowed. I read it on the fine print. Said no Canadians. So
I was trying to get Wes, but that man is a world traveler and very busy.
Wes Huff, where you at?
he's been killing it.
He's crushing it. All right, I gotta go. Love you guys.
Later, man.
Peace.
Nice meeting you.
Peace.
Oh,
All
geez.
right. Avery should have been there. Someone in the Muslim field. Yeah, Avery would have been good. He's super good with Muslims for sure. The problem with George is that he only invites people who affirm his beliefs and not anyone that will challenge him. I don't think that's fair. I think he does. He's had some people on to challenge him on things, as they mentioned.
But he had an atheist on recently, and they had like a
Yeah.
big discussion. So
Was a fan of Janko until he went to Romania and interviewed Tate. Talked about how awesome he was. I didn't know about that. Not sure if he still feels that way, but major L. Yeah, John the Press Biter. I agree. Tate is a major L. Let's keep him off the screens. We don't need to be unless you're debating him. There's no reason for any Christian to be interviewing him or anything like that. The guy is horrible in stuff he does and what he has done, and pushes out the wrong message. Like, don't get married. Just have a bunch of women you use and abuse. Like, it's
he literally confessed to being a pimp and gaslighting women to make a whole bunch of money, and then people are like, "Oh, he's so amazing!" Like, what? How?
Yeah.
I don't know. That is some messed up stuff here. All right. The true gospel is universalism. All will be saved. Hell is pagan, mistranslated from Sheol, Hades, Gehenna. God never fails. Well, I mean, Hades is in First Peter, so it's in the Bible. Like, it uses that word. So is Sheol. That's used in the Bible. So these terms are in the Bible. If they're pagan, then there's paganism in the Bible. Do you want to say that? So
And also, like, hell itself gets thrown into the lake of fire, and that's where the eternal conscious torment starts. If you hold to that, is in that lake of fire.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Can you respond to kingdom in context? Oh God. He's a Unitarian, young Earth creationist, flat earthing, Torah observing fundamentalist who's been pushing nonsense and getting views. Just
Wait, this is
ignore him.
real?
Oh,
Okay, hold on.
bro, you don't know the half of it.
I'm gonna mute up just so I could find it.
No, listen, you got to watch his debate with Anthony Rogers, where he claims the Father has a real, actual body, and like the whole point is like sacrifices are so God can eat in heaven. Listen, it's nuts. Everyone who comes across it knows it's nuts. That's all we need to say. I was on there one time, didn't know how nuts he was, and then I'm like,
big channel.
Yeah, when I was like being interviewed by him, I was like, oh no, like it got worse and worse. And then I saw what he did to a friend of mine, Caleb Haig. I was like, yeah, this guy is just not doing right things. So I just wanted to thank you for the encouragement and prayer for my marriage. A lot of it was what I needed to hear. That's great. So
Awesome.
glad you could report back to us. What are your thoughts on Philip Mainlander? Who?
He's a philosopher.
of course you would know.
I don't remember much about him, to be honest with you, though.
He's looks like I don't know. I don't know much about him. Sorry. No way. It's my boy, Big John Steele. That's right. Your boy, not a man, boy. Why even say you're Christian Avengers? We don't. We say we're the Christian Averagers. Let's get it right. Muslim Apologetics Avenger, David Wood. And God bless Rousan. Yes. Is Than the strongest Avenger? He's the gayest. Thank you, Sentinel Apologetics.
I was. We
You
have a
heard
Hulk. You remember that line from the Avengers?
First one, yeah.
Uh,
Do you have any advice for me how to start thinking more deeply about faith and biblical readings, relying less on outside sources to point things out? What are you guys' thoughts?
Honestly, get your reps in.
Yeah.
That's like my advice is just start doing it. And you're not going to do it perfectly, but if you do it with people that know how to do it and have the track record of doing it well, you'll have people there as safety rails to help you when you go off on the deep end. But the best way to like learn how to do it is by actually doing it. So
See,
find somebody that you can do it with.
I'm just a user. I don't have a unique thought. Everybody else's thoughts. I just take them and spew them out. It seems to work for me.
Yeah. IP outside. The Bible is clear. Baptism saves. How does that work though? When repentance also saves. I've not been able to understand how. I know it's true. Well, it's all part of the gospel itself. Like, you got to look at this as all different aspects of the gospel. You repent, you're baptized. These are things you do to be saved. So, I mean, like, that's what you got to keep in mind. This is all part of the gospel. It's all holistic. If Jesus and the apostles said his coming was soon and at hand, what objective basis allows redefining those words to mean thousands of years later? Good question. Read Jeremiah 18. All prophecy is conditional. Delays can happen if the stipulations are not filled. In Matthew 23, clearly says, Jesus says to the Jews, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Romans says that the fullness of the delaying of Israel's salvation has happened, so the fullness of Gentiles has come in. So you want Jesus to return, get everyone saved. Very clear, those stipulations have to be fulfilled. Therefore, prophecy can be delayed. So see a video I did.
Can I press you on that? Because I'm curious about something.
Yeah, real quick. Just the video I did is was Jesus a failed apocalyptic prophet? You could see that one. But yeah, go ahead.
So are you saying that Jesus, if he's saying soon, he's saying the expectation was to get the gospel to the four corners of the earth in a relatively quick manner, and we failed at that?
Yeah. Basically, he's saying, like, listen, if you would have gotten these stipulations done, like, if it really could have spread like wildfire, then yeah, it could have happened that fast.
So you think we could have got it to like China in a very short period of time from the Near East?
If the church did what it needed to do, it very well could have happened. I don't know how fast that would have been, but I think, we're talking like mass saving, like Pentecost, like in every city kind of thing. Okay. But that's what to keep in mind. So we already answered this. We already answered that. So I'm conflicted on if I should be Catholic or Protestant. Do I need to be a certain denomination? No. Again, I use the argument I gave earlier. Look, baptism saves. Both Catholic and Protestant churches recognize each other's baptism. Therefore, you're fine. Imagine being dumb and praying to Mary. Well, yeah, dumb people. Well, that doesn't make any sense because they don't pray to Mary. They ask for intercessory prayer. So I don't know what you're talking about. Saul was condemned for contacting the spirit of Samuel. This seems to be a clear indicator we are not to contact those who have passed on. Through the process of necromancing, like actually going to see a pagan necromancer, yes, that is absolutely wrong, but that doesn't mean that God is not the God of the living. I have hesitation because I don't know for certain the saints can hear me, and if I ask them to pray for me. Also, it is unreasonable for me to be thrown off by prayers like consecration to Mary. But you don't have to pray to the saints. Like, you don't have to ask for intercessory prayer. You talk to God directly. I think that's more important that we focus on that at the end of the day. So I don't think you need to even worry about it. Can you please not disable live chat replies for this vid? Did I? Have I ever done that?
Are they disabled?
I don't know. It may do it automatically. I've never done that like directly. If it's been doing it, I apologize. I
can take a look quick.
Yeah. Jesus fulfilled the Old Testament, like you said. The new heavens and the new earth are fulfilled. Isaiah 65. Matthew 25 happened in 70 AD. Audience relevance you. I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. Now, now as a post-millennialist, I say that the new heavens and the new earth are currently being built through the church. So they are being fulfilled in the new covenant, slowly but surely. That's what I would say. To be fair, Dante, he writes how each punishment in hell is one's own choice, punishing them. Yeah, that's fair. It's been a while since I've read that. So, John the Presbyter. What drove a lot of young people from Christianity was the satanic panic, being told Pokemon and yoga were demonic, listening to certain music and sending them to hell. It was super cringe. That's probably a part of it, but I think it's probably a lot more was involved in that.
Pokemon's absolutely demonic. Like, it's very obvious. It's very clear.
Mike, the last few videos, the live chat is disabled. Replays are disabled.
That's weird. That should
Matt.
No, Matt, fix it, Matt. Matt will fix it. Okay. Why are Alex O'Connor's sons here? Why are they here?
Daddy O'Connor.
He says it's Big John and Rousan.
Why can't look? My name is literally on the screen 90% of the time, yet no one could ever spell my name right ever.
Well, it's because they put an H in it because it feels.
There's no H. It's not Jahan.
Well, your name is not on the screen right now. Just
But usually.
I publicly say that I'm not a full
Apostasis.
yeah. And fathers such as Gregory of Nyssa taught it and were never condemned. Yeah, it's fair. I don't know. What do you got? Do you have any thoughts on that? I don't really.
I'm not an anti-universalist, so
Yeah.
I don't agree with the position, but I'm not.
I'm a hopeful universalist.
Yeah, I think everyone should be for sure.
Yeah.
You know, so thank you, Ellie, for the generous $300 super chat. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Remember, I hope to see you in Florida next month when I'll be down there for Apologeticon at in Sarasota, Florida. We're having a big event in a couple weeks. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yo, you've criticized Cliff Nechtel. I've been following him since public access cable in the 90s. He's done so much to encourage so many people to really think about Christ, love him and his work. Yeah, we fully acknowledge he's done that, but we've also criticized his debate performance because that doesn't give him a free pass.
Cliff is like goated for what he's done. He's phenomenal preacher. He's a phenomenal street preacher, a phenomenal evangelist. Like the man is on like a Mount Rushmore for whatever his category of Christianity is. But when you step into a realm of like apologetics and debate, you've entered into a new category, and you have to expect critique for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hell is eternal, but God can provide a way of salvation, even the devil, while not violating the atonement of his holy nature. Can I share, please? Well, you just did, so I'm not sure what you mean, sir. Big John and Ruslan, pseudo-intellectuals.
Wow.
Oh, got him.
The fact
they're
that
clearly
he
not
can
talking about you, John, because your name is Jon.
True.
Yeah.
So
True.
maybe there's-
And one day I hope to achieve pseudo-intellectuality. I'll that's the goal. So I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Anglican. What are your thoughts on the Anglican Reform view of the Eucharist? Well, I thought Anglican believed in real presence. I know a lot of Reformed churches don't, but I thought Anglicans believed in the real presence. Yeah. So
the difference is again is the holy order. So they don't have holy order, so to speak, and that's where it separates the two.
Yeah. Imagine Sam Shamoon and Cliff team up. Oh, that would be crazy. Especially when Sam turns on him for not being Catholic. So
yeah.
Do Catholics believe there was transubstantiation during the very first communion that Jesus gave, or does that only happen after? No, they do believe it was there. They believe it was happening there too. Yeah. So yes.
Just imagine Jesus who like cuts off his finger and it turns into a piece of bread. Gives it.
That's actually one of the arguments they use to point out that you're not eating like a piece of Jesus's like glorified body, like the actual like. You're not eating like his finger or like his knee or something. You're eating his flesh and blood, but it's not like one of those body parts. Thoughts on Ortland? CC back on fourth on canon. I don't care. I stay out of that denominational stuff. I don't find it helpful or interesting. I think we should all be working together to bring more people into the church. I don't care. I disagree. Let's not focus on that. That's what I say.
Stop the infighting. I gotta agree with you on that, man. The infighting has gotten to the point where it's so ridiculous that we're so busy fighting each other that we forget that we got atheists and Muslims out there to fight. Like they already outnumber us. Why are we battling each other?
Exactly. Yeah. As a Lutheran, thank you for saying we reject consubstantiation. Legend has it every time the word is uttered, a random Lutheran gets a ringing pain in their ear. Yeah, I know. I get annoyed by that because I don't think I've ever heard a Lutheran like claim that's what they believe. So yeah, totally get it. I looked at that one. Thank you, Apostate Prophet, becoming a channel member. About time. IP, you need to see the Japanese version of DBZ. American version changed a lot of the themes and the series covers. The Japanese is better. I believe you're right.
Really? You and I get to do. Maybe it's just the Sean Schummel voice acting for Goku that is better for me.
Nerd.
I'm surprised you even know what that is. So
Sean Schimmel's the guy who voice acts Goku.
Sure he does. Whatever, nerd. Anyway, serious question. If God called us gods and co-heirs with Christ, why are we practicing idolatry and not valuing others above ourselves? Thanks. So he called us co-heirs with Christ, but not gods. We're not God never called us gods.
Oh, when he quotes, what's that psalm he quotes?
Psalm 92.
Wasn't I? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not calling the Pharisees gods.
No.
He's quoting. Well, I don't know what your view is on the whole divine rule. What?
Heiser's view.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So then what what Jesus is saying is he's talking about other little g gods or other Elohim, divine beings, and calling them those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's telling the Pharisees, so why are you calling it blasphemy when I call myself the Son of God? He's making a rhetorical point here. That's all that's happening there.
Yeah. The Christian Avengers conveniently left out Catholic and Orthodox. Just a little bit exclusive, prideful. They're missing out. Yeah, totally agree. I'm a Calvinist who calls for unity with all but Matt Fradd posting the Catholics have more in common with Islam and Mormons. In most said Mormons. The straw man, as they say, Mormons or prots, really. I'm not sure what Matt said, so I can't comment on it, but I don't think
Matt would say something like that. That doesn't sound... I've listened to a lot of Matt Fradd. I don't think that's in his wheelhouse.
No. I have a great aversion to alcohol due to like personal convictions and sensitivity towards abuse. Why would I drink alcohol, wine for communion to be valid? Because Jesus said it has to be wine, first of all. And at the church I go to, we have little cups off to the side that are water with a drop of wine in it. And there's an alcoholic at the church who has no problem taking that. So he doesn't drink. He has a drop every week, apparently. But so there are ways that we deal with that in a church that uses wines, things like that.
I went to a high church once, and they were giving out the Eucharist, and they said they had gluten free, and there's something about that just like hit me. It's like gluten free Jesus. That's what we need in our life.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Yeah, my mother has to take that because she's got celiac disease.
Yeah.
Lutherans reject transubstantiation partly because in Aristotle's metaphysics, accidents can't exist without their substance. So it's not explained by Aristotelianism. I don't know if that's true. And like Thomas Aquinas talked about this. That's not, I don't think that's true that accidents can't exist without their substance. So you can have changes between accidents and substances that Aquinas talked about. So, and I don't think that's the reason Lutherans reject it. The reason Martin Luther rejected it was because these categories aren't in scripture. So why bring them into scripture? It is the real flesh and blood of Jesus. But it's a mystery is what he said. What are your opinions on Sam Shamoon?
I think he's a really smart guy, but I think he's really mean sometimes.
I to be honest with you, have not watched much of him. And I've only seen viral clips of him like calling people like the son of a whore or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's all I know about him.
Yeah. I would agree. I think he's really smart. I just wish he would not use a lot of those terms. Yeah. Wait, you're friends with Caleb Haig, Messiah Matters? Yeah. Yeah, we're cool. So, what's it to you? How do you get closer to God? Thoughts and advice. Read the Bible, go to church, be a part of a Bible study, pray weekly. Everything that just standard stuff, honestly.
Be integrated. Like, don't just go to church, but be integrated with the church community that you're going to as well. Like, that is a huge part of it, I think.
Love this next one. Imagine if Sam Shamoon was a guest on George's podcast. Oh, yes. Let's. That would be a train wreck, maybe, if they start fighting. But many Christians claim that Roman Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, and Protestants are all saved, yet these groups assert their church is the one true church with no salvation outside of it. How are they all saved? I don't know if that's accurate. Again, as I said earlier, Catholics accept Protestant baptism. If they do, they're accepting that Protestants are saved. Because baptism saves, according to the Catholic.
I think the definitive teaching is that people are not participating in the fullness of truth, but yet salvation is through God. So they're not talking about salvation. They're talking about whether or not you're participating in the fullness of truth. And if by chance you're outside of the church and you are saved, from their viewpoint, you're actually in the church because there is only one church. So that'd be their viewpoint.
Mm-hmm. Hey, P, thanks for the Saturday conference. It was nice meeting you, sir. Did you repent for bending down in front of a Christmas tree to pick up your water bottle? I did. I said like 8 Hail Marys. So I fixed it all. Because, the way you fix bowing down to a pagan Christmas tree is to Hail Mary or pagan Hail Mary. So there. So I fixed it. Y'all seem to agree on real presence. Leighton Flowers' interpretation of John 6 is in refuting Calvinism. Sheds light on why this is false. Familiar? Nope. Sorry, Bilbo. Not read it. How can we say God is not the author of confusion, yet the Bible is very much confusing? I believe in God, but not the God of any book. Thanks. Well, he's talking about tongues. In that context, it's talking about, hey, don't have tongues in a church without an interpreter because God is not the author of confusion. So the context is about that specifically, not saying every Bible verse is going to be super clear for every single person everywhere and all time.
Plus, God didn't author the Bible. Like, he didn't physically write it himself.
Yes, it's not like the eternal speech of Allah. Might be too big or sensitive a question for the stream, so I understand if you want to skip it. But what do you think about the Jews continuing to reject Jesus despite the overwhelming evidence he's the Messiah? I think it's tragic. This is why we need books like Michael Brown's work, answering Jewish objections to Jesus, that kind of stuff, because we need more of that kind of witnessing. So, don't know what to say other than that, other than when we need to keep witnessing to them. My parents are hardcore Jehovah's Witnesses. I try and tell them that they're wrong, but they won't listen to any books, verses, vids, advice. Here's what I'd say. Develop a Socratic method. Start asking them questions. Hey, if Jesus said this, doesn't that mean that he's more than just an archangel? Why doesn't the New Testament say that he's Michael the archangel if he is? Why does it say things like, that before Abraham was, I am? Or if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Do you think looking at an angel, you'd see God? Or, things like that. Try a Socratic method is what I'd say. Any thoughts on never drinkers? How to Eucharist? I think they're wrong. I think you can do, and here's another thing you could do is in the Catholic Church, they'll sometimes just offer the bread because what flesh does not have blood in it? So I think that's fine. I do agree with the reformers that push back saying, no, we should be offered the wine, not just the bread. But I think it's fine for you to just take the bread as long as you're getting it in that fashion.
What if you bring your own bread and wine?
Okay, as long as it's blessed by the priest, you're fine. The guy in the middle is insufferable. Get him off. I think this came in when it was the four of us, so there was no one in the middle. I think that's what he's talking about.
I appreciate the save, bro.
IP's eschatology is sus. Just become a partial preterist. Big John Retley pointed out the folly in his interpretation. I am a partial preterist. What are you talking about?
It's funny too, because like when I was studying preterism, I actually reached out to you like way back and you pointed me in the direction and I started. So like a reason I'm a partial preterist is partially because of you. So it's ironic.
Bilbo, what are you talking about? No idea. Thanks for answering and not skipping. The conditional was that the generation wouldn't pass until all things took place. So again, read then in conjunction with Jeremiah 18. God can delay that aspect if the stipulations have not been fit. And see my video again. Was Jesus a failed apocalyptic prophet? I explain all that in far more detail there, sir. We already did that one. John's so grumpy, he's the type to condemn you to hell for playing Pokemon Go. He was pretty quiet when he was in front of Alex O'Connor.
Is this a friend of yours, John? Or is this like, do you actually have an actual hater?
I don't know, man. I can never tell because I get roasted by so many people, including the people who are actual supporters. They roast me all the time. I can't tell the difference anymore. He could be a genuine hater. He could be a support. I have no clue. You'll have to ask him.
Hate is going to hate. No! Matt asked in a poll if we have more in common with Mormons and Muslims. Okay, so he didn't say it. He asked it in a poll. I'd say, honestly, we have more in common with Muslims, surprisingly, because Mormons believe in like a created God who was on a planet and then became a god and had his own planet, and then we're all his spirit babies. It's like it's more closer to like paganism than like believing in an eternal creator of the universe. I don't know. I don't see how we're closer to Mormon Muslims. Maybe in ethical aspects, but not in theological aspects.
I mean, the catechism would say they're participating in a partial truth, specifically in Islam, but not the same for Mormonism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Aquinas, therefore it follows that the accidents continue in the sacrament without a subject. This can be done by divine power. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for that. All right. So what are your guys' final thoughts on the Christian Avengers? I'm a hater of Big Clown John Steele. He just came in to tell you that. He's a hater.
You know, I had somebody on my live last night. They kept paying me money to tell me how much they hated me. And I'm like, this is great. Like, you're gonna send super chats. Like, phenomenal.
Listen, Breads. Big John does lives. You should go
absolutely
talk to him. Send him some. Send him
Aren't
some.
We doing one tomorrow, John?
Streams.
Are we? You never responded back to me.
I'm horrible at that. You gotta bother me. Yeah, I'll be there.
Well,
All right. Listen, breads, they're both
I don't
gonna
have
be
enough
there.
time to set it up now, bro. For 12 hours notice. Jeez.
Well,
Sorry.
now you got this. You guys got this. You'll be fine. Just do it. Just do it. So I feel that my youth group feels like a TED Talk, and I honestly feel like I'm wasting time. I've considered leaving the youth group. Any thoughts? Yeah, I feel you. I was there once. Yeah, that's a difficult situation. First of all, if you're still under your parents and they want you to go, you have to go. Try to make the best of it. Look, when you're an adult, look for something that's gonna be more to your liking, something that's more of a deep Bible study. You could also look around for one and try to convince your parents that you can go to that one and see what they say. Try to look for that. Your thoughts on Jewish monotheism versus monolatry?
Depends on what you mean by the words.
Yeah, I mean, like, why not both? Why not both?
They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, it is. No, for sure. Let's meet up and fight IP, not preterist enough. I mean, I'm going to warn
If
you.
you want to hurt Mike, you have to go through me first.
I mean, I got a secondary black belt and used to do 1,000 kick drills weekly. So
There you go.
You could try it, but I'm going to watch for forelimbs coming at you.
All right, I'm just going to ask now. When are we going to spar? I want to spar now because I've heard so much and I want to see. I want to test.
Well, when you get out of Canada and get down here, we can spar.
Now I'm going to be looking at plane tickets for sure.
No one likes Big Sean Steele. What's going on?
That's the guy. That's the guy from yesterday I was talking about. Kept paying me money to tell me how much he didn't like me.
Well, maybe he should go back to do more of it. I think that'd be great. Than, what is the name for yours and Tim's solution to the problem of evil and suffering?
We don't really have like a name for it, I guess, because there's so many aspects to it. My approach to the problem of evil, I just call it like the cosmic story theodicy, but it's pretty much evolved into an actual argument for Christianity at this point. So the technical name that I've kind of given the way I uniquely go about it, because I'm a little bit different than Tim, is I just call it my ramified narratological case for Christianity at the moment. If you think of a better name, though, let me know.
Easy to roll off the tongue. Ramified, flipping.
See, this is why I came up with mine. The law of triumph. Boom. Simple. Explains
We
it
can
all.
still call it the cosmic story.
Cosmic. See, there you go. That sounds better. Sounds much better. Yeah. Shout out to Big John.
You put in all the H's.
All the H's. Yeah.
Yep.
All the H's that are not in your name.
Appreciate you, bro.
Has anyone seen The Chosen? Any thoughts? I have not. And I'm at the point now where
I watched a few episodes and I cried during it. I'll admit it.
I'm at the point now where I just don't want to watch it because people keep asking if I watched it. So
I don't have time to watch TV.
Would love to see BJ KOD.
You can see me get TKO'd. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay, what are you guys' thoughts on the Christian Avengers?
I think Rousan shedded good light on it.
Rousan.
What did I say wrong?
Rousan.
Yeah, he shedded some good light on it and like kind of opened up. He's very good at like steel manning their perspectives and helping understand what George Janko's original goal was, and I think that was good. It's just the Avenger title. It's like it was a Bible study in my perspective, and it was good for what it was, but I don't think it was like an Avenger theme thing.
No, I agree. I agree with what you said. Than, any final words?
No, I think my opinion is still that it kind of just felt like a evangelical Bible study talk therapy session type thing, which again, I don't think they did anything bad. I think some phrasing could have been better from the clips we watched.
I think
it'd be cool to see. It'd be cool if George Janko would get some some whatever people like us on his podcast too, just to kind of help.
This is just a big cope fest. Why didn't they have us on? Why wasn't it us?
You see, we're just coping. You see, they admit it. Yeah. The Vermin says the ramified cosmic story solution for you.
Possibly.
There you go. Rousan rips off his crap clothes. Okay. I don't know what's going on anymore. People just
Can
throw
you
in money.
imagine
and
just
say
have
weird stuff.
just like money, just like I want to insult people today. Where's my bank card?
Yeah, right. I wish I had that kind of money.
All right. Well, we're going to close this out. Thank you. Big John Steele's channel is linked below. If you guys want to go throw money at him to insult him, you now can. So go
Well,
subscribe to him.
Even better, I have an open queue for anybody who wants to come up and just do it to my face.
That's
Open
true.
invitation.
He's a masochist, obviously, ladies and gentlemen. We all learned that today. So.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, something big might happen later this week. I might be back on Timcast Friday, so keep your eyes out for that, everybody. Yeah. I will see you guys next time. Thanks for coming, everyone. You made it to the end of this video, which means this message matters to you. If you want to see more content like this reaching people for Christ, you can help make it happen. Your support makes these videos possible. Click the link below and donate today. And if you want to go even deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. You'll get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes content, and a place to connect with others passionate about this mission.